Hello, good morning. Welcome and thanks for joining us on our flagship program, Morning Express, live on ADBN television. It's a Thursday, day 31 in the month of October 2024. And November is looking promising in terms of some of the rejiggings within President Bola Ahmed Tinubu's cabinet. We'll talk about all of that in a moment. But first off, let's head over to our news desk for our first major news bulletin of the day as we join Amma Marcus for ADBN News at 7. Hello, Amma. Good morning to you.
Hello Vito, good morning and welcome to ADBN News at 7. We bring you the latest headlines from across the nation and the world. I am Amma Marcus. Senate confirmed the appointment of 7 ministerial nominees sent by President Bola Tinubu to serve as ministers and members of Federal Executive Council. The confirmation took place yesterday evening and followed hours of screening by the Senate Committee of the Whole. The newly confirmed ministers include Mr. Nentawe Yowatda, Minister of Humanitarian Affairs and Poverty Reduction, Alhaji Muhammadu Maigari, Minister of Labour and Employment, Ambassador Bianca Odinaka Odomegu Ojukwu, Minister of State for Foreign Affairs, and Dr. Jumoke Oduwole, Minister of Industry, Trade and Investment, Alhaji Mukhtar Miha, Minister of Livestock Development, Right Honorable Yusuf Abdullahi, Minister of State Housing, and Dr. Suwaba Ahmed, Minister of State for Education. The confirmation follows President Tinubu's recent request for swift Senate review of his ministerial appointments.
Distinguished senators, I would like to say that my past records speak for me. As ambassador to the Kingdom of Spain, I spent an entire year in one hotel room because when I got to Spain, the mission building was in such an appalling condition. Together with very dedicated officers, we conducted the massive renovation works, not just on the mission building itself, giving Nigeria an edifice truly deserving of a nation of its standing.
First, while I adopt all the sentiments that have been said earlier by the Anambra senators and the one from Enugu State, I will say that one, maybe because of her, Mr. President, by bringing an APGA person to be a minister, has already started with what we call a unity government and looking for national integration. We can only ask that Mr. President goes much further, much further, but we commend him for this. Second, another commendation we will make for the President, which most people have also forgotten. We have on the floor of this Senate always sought that a president sending nominees to the floor must attach it with the portfolios. Today, we are seeing that the president has started by letting us know in the portfolios of those that will go to the different areas, and that is commendable. And so I think that this, having been started, should be sustained by all presidents that will come and the president in his further changes, because I know that there are going to be more changes.
Listening to her, nobody can fault her qualification to serve this country in any capacity. She's very intelligent, very charismatic, and very beautiful. For her to step into this chamber to be confirmed, screened and confirmed as a Minister of the Federal Republic of Nigeria is indicative of the fact that we are trying to put the past behind us in this country. So what I'm saying is that with her joining the federal cabinet, Mr. President, we are looking forward to opening more doors to reconciliation and many other things to come.
We congratulate all the nominees for this elevation by Almighty God, courtesy of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, and also pray that God will give them the enablement to continue to put in their best for the upliftment of the citizenry and the benefit of this great country. Congratulations also to my colleagues, distinguished senators, who have spent the better part of the day from morning till now to do this all-important national assignment. I congratulate all of you, and I pray that Almighty God will reward each and every one of you with good health and wisdom to continue to serve our great nation.
In the Green Chambers, House of Representatives summoned the Federal Ministry of Environment, National Emergency Management Agency and Hydrological Services Agency to appear before the Committees on Environment, Emergency and Disaster Preparedness and Water Resources. The House also called on the Federal Ministry of Environment and state governments to initiate evacuation plans for communities along floodplains, ensuring access to temporary shelters, medical assistance, and other necessary support for affected populations. This resolution followed the adoption of a motion introduced by Honorable Sesi Wangan.
It is crucial that relevant authorities immediately implement strategies to mitigate the predicted disaster, including evacuation plans, provision of relief materials, and ensuring post-flood recovery efforts are coordinated effectively. The House resolves to 1. Summon the Federal Ministry of Environment, the National Emergency Management Agency, and the Hydrological Services Agency to appear before this Honorable House to explain what precautionary measures are being implemented to safeguard lives and properties in the predicted flood zones. Call on the Federal Ministry of Environment and state governments to activate evacuation protocols for communities along floodplains and ensure that affected populations have access to temporary shelters, medical services, and other forms of support. 3. The House urged the Federal Ministry of Works and Housing and the Ministry of Water Resources to carry out an immediate assessment of drainage system and waterways in flood-prone areas and work reduce blockages that could worsen flooding. Direct that the federal government, through the relevant ministries and agencies, to collaborate with the state government to enhance their disaster preparedness capabilities and also ensure the quick deployment of rescue teams and relief materials and medical assistance where needed.
In a separate resolution, the House of Representatives urged the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, to relocate its local government offices to secure neutral locations and to include adequate provisions in the 2025 budget for this project.
The House also notes that the Independent National Electoral Commission has a critical role in conducting free, fair, and credible elections. The House further notes that majority of the INEC's local government offices are currently situated within local government headquarters or otherwise. Further note that the majority, the House is aware that this is potentially hampering and compromising the independence of INEC in the conduct of elections. The House observes that this proximity exposes INEC to manipulations and control by interest groups, particularly in areas dominated by a single political party. Concerned that this impedes INEC impartiality as enshrined in Section 6 of the Electoral Act 2022. cognizance of the need to maintain public trust and confidence in the electoral process, the House resolves as follows: to urge INEC to relocate its local government offices to secure neutral locations and make adequate provisions in the 2025 budget estimates to accommodate the projects.
The Green Chamber also urged the Ministry of Aviation and Aerospace to host the issuance of airstrip licenses to private individuals and organizations and to revoke any existing approvals. This move is intended to strengthen national security. The House noted that the security agencies have struggled to trace the sources of these supplies, which fuel insurgency, kidnapping and separatist violence across Nigeria. Honorable Gumi warned that allowing private airstrips could facilitate the illegal importation of weapons and drugs, exacerbating the country's security crisis and hindering socio-economic development.
Recall that in September 2014, a prominent religious leader was linked with a private jet used to convey $9.3 million in cash to South Africa for purchase of arms. The private jet was seized by the South African authorities, which has two people, Nigerian and an Israeli, on board. Concerned that the current experience of security challenge that Nigeria is facing through illegal importation, proliferation of firearms and ammunition, importation of illicit hard drugs, coupled with the inability of our security agencies to pinpoint the source of supply of weapons to insurgents, kidnappers, and separatists that have massacred thousands of Nigerians across the country. Worried that granting airstrip to private individuals and organizations will aid illegal importation of firearms and hard drugs into the country, thus heightening insurgency, kidnapping, banditry, and other vices that are seriously affecting the socio-economic development of the country. The House resolves to 1. Call on the Ministry of Aviation and Aerospace to stop issuance of airstrip licenses to private individuals and organizations, and also withdraw approvals already granted to private individuals and organizations with a view to safeguarding national security.
Moving on to power matters, Minister of Power Chief Adebayo Abu has identified several challenges affecting the power sector, including outdated power infrastructure, vandalism, and key transmission lines and security issues. Speaking at a media briefing organized by Transmission Company of Nigeria, Chief Adelabu assured that the ongoing blackouts in the northern part of the country would be resolved within a week. He highlighted that TCN engineers are actively working to restore power with plans to deploy military support to ensure their safety during repairs.
We are happy that no matter what, light will be restored to the north, while we still continue to work on the vandalized line of Shiroro and Kaduna line, which will take between 10 and 14 days, because it actually affected a number of cars, not just lines. And when it involves cars, you know that a lot of civil work will need to be carried out before you erect the tower, ensure that they are standing properly before the stringing of the lines of these towers. So, in a matter of 2 weeks, they will finish that. But before then, at least 70 to 80% of the northern part which is affected will have lights. That is the assurance I've been given by the MD of TCN and the Executive Director, Transmission Service Provider.
The Minister mentioned that measures are underway to establish the Western and Eastern supergrids, which will serve as backup grids to the national grid. However, he noted that this plan would take time and significant financial investment to materialize.
If you have this super grid, which is what exists in advanced countries, to reduce the absolute reliance on the single national grid. And this is to see the support of Mr. President. When we have this aspect approval, we go to the Federal Executive Council and get the approval, and we start this. And we've got investors and financiers for this project. And that will bring final end to grid disturbances or grid collapse.
Managing Director of TCN, Engineer Sule Abdulaziz, detailed the challenges faced by the company due to vandalism and security concerns. He stated that the company is receiving assistance from the Nigerian military and Office of the National Security Advisor to restore power to the northern region.
As I'm talking to you, we did a lot. We're expanding the grid, we're building new substations, we're building new transmission line, we are conducting the transmission lines, we are upgrading the transformers. Go and see how many 300 MVA we have in the system. Initially, what we have in Nigeria, the highest transformer we have is 150 MVA. But now, we have 300 in so many stations. So we are doing all our best to make sure that the grid is expanded.
The minister also proposed a long-term solution involving localized solar plants to provide stable electricity across the northern states, aiming for self-sufficiency in energy supply. He reiterated that President Tinubu's administration is committed to protecting public utilities from sabotage and urged community leaders to collaborate with security agencies. He therefore called for a comprehensive approach to revamping Nigeria's aging power infrastructure, which has been plagued by maintenance issues and vandalism. And now to the security sector. Over 1,000 suspects have been arrested for various criminal cases by the Nigeria Police Force across the country in the last 3 weeks. Force Public Relations Officer ACP Olumiwa Adejobi disclosed this while parading suspects arrested recently by personnel of the Intelligence Response Team. ADBN correspondent Fumilola Adeyemi tells us more.
16 suspects were paraded for offences ranging from armed robbery, kidnapping, illegal possession of firearms, among others. Weapons recovered include 12 assaulted arms, 1,004 rounds of various calibers of ammunition, among others. Force Public Relations Officer ACP Olumiwa Adejobi explained success is to reaffirm Force commitment to safeguarding citizens' lives and property.
The tremendous efforts of the force under the guidance of the Inspector General of Police serves as a beacon of hope in the fight against criminal elements, showcasing remarkable progress in advancing the primary objective of ensuring peace and security for all citizens.
ACP Adejobi also spoke on the case of alleged assault by House of Representative member Honorable Alexandra Ikweche.
As a follow-up to the case of assault against Honorable Alexandra, the Honorable has been charged to court today. The Nigeria Police Force is committed to upholding the rule of law and making sure we have sanctity and respect for human dignity in Nigeria. The Special Investigation Unit of Nigeria Police Force has taken over the case from the Federal Capital Territory Police Command.
He affirms Force commitment to protection of citizens at all levels. Fumilola Adeyemi, ADBN News.
Contractors handling projects in the FCT have been warned to desist from unnecessary cost variations. Minister of the Federal Capital Territory, Barrister Nyesom Wike, gave the warning at the flag-off ceremony of the Aguma Palace to New Market Junction Road project in Gwagwalada Council area. FCT correspondent Naomi Oleribe tells us more.
This is the 8th flag-off ceremony for road construction projects organized by the Federal Capital Territory Administration. In his address, Minister of the Federal Capital Territory, Barrister Nyesom Wike, cautioned contractors against any changes to the original contract scope.
And let me please plead with the contractor. Now we are having dry season, or now we have dry season. Utilize this period to make sure the work is not carried out well. You know how the rains, the climate change. You never can tell when the rains will come. So as we have it now, utilize the opportunity and make sure we have no problem of delay. Let me also warn you there is no provision in our budget for variation. I don't want to hear there's a gully somewhere. We have taken note of all those things before the bill of quantum was prepared.
Chairman, Gwagwalada Area Council, Alhaji Abubakar Jibril Giri, expressed his appreciation to the Minister for investing in rural infrastructure, which he noted would improve the lives of residents in rural communities.
Our major challenge is the major road. We don't have much road. This road we are flagging out today is the major road in Gwagwalada town. We don't have any other road that is linking from other area to other area in Gwagwalada than this very road.
The minister is expected to complete his 9-day series of events tomorrow with a youth empowerment event aimed at improving the standard of living for FCT youths. Naomi Oleribe, ADBN News.
Still in the FCT, Abuja Metropolitan Management Council has arrested an expatriate contractor accused of vandalizing essential street light components in Abuja. The arrest was confirmed by Chief Felix Obua, coordinator of AMMC, during his inspection of damaged cables and other vandalized infrastructure in parts of the Federal Capital Territory. Our FCT correspondent now reports.
The arrest of the contractor, who had been conducting business in Abuja, is part of a broader investigation by AMMC into cases of vandalism targeting public infrastructure. Chief Obua stated that the suspect has been dismantling cables and street poles, allegedly to position himself for a new contract from the authorities. He disclosed that the expatriate had been formally handed over to the police for further investigation, but declined to reveal the suspect's name and nationality, noting that additional details will be released upon the completion of investigation.
We have evidence, we have everything. Our report is going down to Minister tomorrow immediately. We must make sure that we go to the root cause to discover those who are buying, those who are vandalizing, to make sure that the dream of the minister, all his effort, having sleepless night, to make sure that Abuja is one of the best cities in the whole world, is achieved. We can't be doing this while some miscreants and some expatriates are busy vandalizing, sabotaging the good effort of this government.
The AMMC previously believed that the frequent cable thefts were primarily carried out by local miscreants and scavengers. However, Chief Obua admitted that the involvement of high-profile contractors in acts of sabotage was an unexpected revelation.
I took up this journey to that. I'm no longer going to sit down in the office. I'm going to watch, move around with my team every night, every day, to make sure that we cannot allow these vandals to have their days. As I speak to you, this is almost 9 o'clock. We are still at the field. We are still working. And we are assuring you that by the special grace of God, the aim of establishing AMC and the aim of appointing me must be achieved.
The recent vandalism, especially along the Kubwa Expressway, has left neighborhoods like Gwagwalada and Dawaki without street lighting. Chief Obua affirmed that AMMC is committed to working closely with the FCT minister to uphold the city's master design and enhance the quality of life for residents. Naomi
Watching ADBN News at 7. More reports to come after this break. Stay with us.
In a world of overwhelming voices where everyone has different opinion on different issues, it is important that we bring the core issue to the fore. Join me, Nancy Banigo, on Softline as we lend our voices to inform and influence your thoughts and actions. This is not just mere talk, it is an evocative program that touches the core of our existence.
No matter wetin I see, enough fit make mouth heavy to talk am. That's now why people dey talk.
You know wetin dey worry you, but you no go fit take help yourself.
In this kind of situation now, what if they really no talk to una? Wetin be the way forward?
They go bury our chairman on Thursday. We go remain here.
Make we talk good where we dey see good, and where we know say we no dey see good, make we also dey talk am.
No woman, no mother deserve to know the grave of his child.
The bank manager, the bank executive, they are the one the government should first pay.
People They Talk, the show on Monday to Friday by 5 p.m. on top ADBN TV.
Welcome to the Niger Delta, a region of incredible beauty and stark contrast. From its breathtaking landscapes to its rich cultural heritage, this is a place where history and modernity collide. But beneath this serene surface lies a story of struggle and resilience. The Niger Delta is the lifeblood of Nigeria's economy, home to vast oil reserves that fuel the nation, yet it is a land where the people fight for their share of the wealth. Join us on the program Niger Delta Today as we explore the heart of the Niger Delta, discover the vibrant cultures, the struggles for environmental justice, and the stories of the people who call this place home. This is the Niger Delta, a land of contrast, a story of resilience, a journey of hope. Don't miss our exclusive series, Niger Delta Today, every day at 12 noon, only on ADBN TV. Witness the untold stories, experience the journey, be part of the change.
Welcome back and thank you for staying tuned. You're watching ADBN News at 7. And now to report on the foreign scene, Britain's new Finance Minister Rachel Reeves announced the biggest tax increases in 3 decades in the first budget yesterday, saying she had to repair the country's broken public services with heavy spending. Businesses and the wealthy faced the brunt of the tax hikes, and Reeves also paved the way for higher borrowing for investment to speed up an economy hit by the 2007 to 2009 financial crisis, Brexit, COVID, and soaring energy prices. The former Bank of England economist, who told Parliament of her pride at being the first female Chancellor of the Exchequer, vowed no repeat of former Prime Minister Liz Truss's unfunded tax cuts, which caused a bond slump in 2022. Investors were initially unfazed by the Labour Party's economic program, but the government bond prices fell later as the scale of the planned spending became clear and investors scaled back their belts to the Bank of England's interest rate cuts next year. And over to sports, Nigeria's Flying Eagles have retained their Wafu B Under-20 title following a 2-1 victory over regional rivals Ghana in Lome. Togo, a courtesy of a brace from Karibo Areche, of the Flying Eagles dominated the first half, showcasing their skill and teamwork, while Ghana intensified their efforts in the second half. Despite the late pressure from the Ghanaians, Nigeria held firm to retain the trophy they won 2 years ago in Niger Republic. Well, the exceptional performance earned him Man of the Match award. In his victory, both Nigeria and Ghana will represent the Wafu B zone at the upcoming Africa Under-20 Cup of Nations, set to take place in South Africa next year. Ruud van Nistelrooy marked a triumphant start as Manchester United's interim manager, leading his team to a commanding 5-2 win against Leicester City in Carabao Cup. The victory secured United's place in the quarter-finals. Goals from Casemiro, Alejandro and captain Bruno Fernandes thrilled the Old Trafford crowd in the team's first match since the departure of Erik ten Hag. Next up, United will face Tottenham, who edged past Manchester City with 2-1 win in their quarter-final clash. In other notable matches yesterday, Newcastle defeated Chelsea 2-0. Liverpool narrowly overcame Brighton 3-2, and Arsenal secured a solid 3-0 victory against Preston. That's it on ADBN News this morning. Remember, you can watch us live on DSTV channel 258, on Star Times channel 140, Avo TV app, Limex World TV app, and Niger TV app. For more stories, visit our website on adbntv.com. Not forgetting, you can watch us live from every part of the world by logging on to adbntv.com/live. Thanks for joining the news this morning. I am Amma Marcus. Do stay tuned for a continuation on Express.
Well, welcome back from our news desk. Having listened to our first major news bulletin this morning, let's also give you a lineup of what is to follow on our flagship program. Up next is the newspaper review segment, where we look at the headlines as published according to editorial guidelines. It is also a conversation starter as we invite you to join the conversation and share your thoughts, comments, and opinion. We also do advise that you exercise civility when you do so, restraining from using inflammatory comments. And after the newspaper review segment, we have our main topic of discussion this morning, and it's centered on Rivers State. Now, following a court judgment, a lot of persons are drawing comparison between what happened under the presidency of Olusegun Obasanjo, where some allocations were stopped as well, as a court judgment has also halted Rivers allocation this morning. We'd have in-depth conversations at that, and at 10 o'clock, we'd cross over to our Uyo studios, where our team of sports analysts are on hand to review some of the actions from last night's Carabao Cup and a build-up going into the weekend's fixtures as it concerns sporting events. Well, it does promise to be an exciting and engaging show this morning on ADBN television. We'll take a short break, and when we return, we'll begin with our conversation starter tailored around headline stories as published on the front pages. Do well to stay with us.
Welcome to the world where innovation meets opportunity, where ideas become empires. This is Market TV.
I am Idorian Flannan, and every week I'll be taking you inside the dynamic world of marketing and commercial business.
From groundbreaking startups to big businesses, Market TV brings you the best pricing and latest goods on display.
It's all about understanding your audience and staying ahead of the trends.
Witness the creative processes that drive the various brands.
Join us as we dive deep into the strategies that shape the commercial landscape. From streets to traditional advertising and social media, we cover it all.
Whether you're a seasoned professional or an aspiring entrepreneur, Market TV provides the insights you need to thrive.
This show gave us the tool to turn our vision into reality.
So, if you're ready to master the market, tune into Market TV every Saturday at 6 p.m.
In a world of overwhelming voices where everyone has different opinion on different issues, it is important that we bring the core issue to the fore. Join me, Nancy Banigo, on Softline as we lend our voices to inform and influence your thoughts and actions. This is not just mere talk, it is an evocative program that touches the core of our existence.
Welcome to the Niger Delta, a region of incredible beauty and stark contrast. From its breathtaking landscapes to its rich cultural heritage, this is a place where history and modernity collide. But beneath this serene surface lies a story of struggle and resilience. The Niger Delta is the lifeblood of Nigeria's economy, home to vast oil reserves that fuel the nation, yet it is a land where the people fight for their share of the wealth. Join us on the program Niger Delta Today as we explore the heart of the Niger Delta, discover the vibrant cultures, the struggles for environmental justice, and the stories of the people who call this place home. This is the Niger Delta, a land of contrast, a story of resilience, a journey of hope. Don't miss our exclusive series, Niger Delta Today, every day at 12 noon, only on ADBN TV. Witness the untold stories, experience the journey, be part of the change.
No matter wetin I see, enough fit make mouth heavy to talk am. That's now why people dey talk.
You know wetin dey worry you, but you no go fit take help yourself.
In this kind of situation now, what if they really no talk to una? Wetin be the way forward?
They go bury our chairman on Thursday. We go remain here.
Make we talk good where we dey see good, and where we know say we no dey see good, make we also dey talk am.
No woman, no mother deserve to know the grave of his child.
The bank manager, the bank executive, they are the one the government should first pay.
People They Talk, the show on Monday to Friday by 5 p.m. on top ADBN TV.
Step into heartbeats of the world where news meets real talk. From breakthroughs in diplomacy to humanitarian challenges and scientific milestones, Global Digest takes you beyond the headlines and straight to the heart of the matter. I am Amma Marcus. Be a part of the world's unfolding stories at 3 p.m. on ADBN, channel 258 on DSTV, and Star Times, channel 140. Global Digest, your window to the world's current affairs, only on Advocate Broadcasting Network.
Welcome to the world where innovation meets opportunity, where ideas become empires. This is Market TV.
I am Idorian Flennon, and every week I'll be taking you inside the dynamic world of marketing and commercial business.
From groundbreaking startups to big businesses, Market TV brings you the best pricing and latest goods on display.
It's all about understanding your audience and staying ahead of the trends.
Witness the creative processes that drive the various brands.
Join us as we dive deep into the strategies that shape the commercial landscape. From streets to traditional advertising and social media, we cover it all.
Whether you're a seasoned professional or an aspiring entrepreneur, Market TV provides the insights you need to thrive.
This show gave us the tool to turn our vision into reality.
So, if you're ready to master the market, tune into Market TV every Saturday at 6 p.m.
No matter wetin I see, enough fit make mouth heavy to talk am. That's now why people dey talk.
You know wetin dey worry you, but you no go fit take help yourself.
In this kind of situation now, what if they really no talk to una? Wetin be the way forward?
They go bury our chairman on Thursday. We go remain here.
Make we talk good where we dey see good, and where we know say we no dey see good, make we also dey talk am.
No woman, no mother deserve to know the grave of his child.
The bank manager, the bank executive, they are the one the government should first pay.
People They Talk, the show on Monday to Friday by 5 p.m. on top ADBN TV.
Welcome to the Niger Delta, a region of incredible beauty and stark contrast. From its breathtaking landscapes to its rich cultural heritage, this is a place where history and modernity collide. But beneath this serene surface lies a story of struggle and resilience. The Niger Delta is the lifeblood of Nigeria's economy, home to vast oil reserves that fuel the nation, yet it is a land where the people fight for their share of the wealth. Join us on the program Niger Delta Today as we explore the heart of the Niger Delta, discover the vibrant cultures, the struggles for environmental justice, and the stories of the people who call this place home. This is the Niger Delta, a land of contrast, a story of resilience, a journey of hope. Don't miss our exclusive series, Niger Delta Today, every day at 12 noon, only on ADBN TV. Witness the untold stories, experience the journey, be part of the change.
Well, thanks for staying with us on the Thursday edition of our flagship program. Be reminded that you can watch us on DSTV channel 258 or on our YouTube channel at ADBN TV or on our webpage on www.adbntv.com. We're looking at the overview of headline stories as published by the different editorial guidelines on the newspaper review segment this morning, just before we get into the conversation. And quite remarkable is the screening process that took place on the floor of the Red Chambers yesterday following the nomination of 7 ministerial nominees by President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. There was a speedy screening of all nominees without drama on the floor of the Red Chambers. Now we'll look at 2 newspapers and how they tailor their headline story to capture what happened yesterday. To begin with, let's take a look at the front page on the Nation newspaper, where we find the story as a headline. On the Nation this morning, you'd find beneath the masthead, assigning portfolios to ministerial nominees excites senators. Senate clears all 7 nominees amid drama, banters. Nominations of Ambassador Ojukwu, evidence of inclusive government. Now you'd find the pictures of all those screened yesterday inserted beneath that lead story with the catchphrase, cleared as fit and proper to serve. There's also a quote besides the pictures. In parentheses, you'd have, no president has done it. I wish future presidents would do so by attaching portfolios to names of nominees. Now, it is proper and fit to say that the Senate gave all 7 nominees a clean bill and cleared them to take office as ministers. And the atmosphere in the Red Chambers was, well, quite the engaging one. There were some jokes and banters amid the screening that took place and saw all 7 persons declared fit to pass. Now, on the rider, you'd have the picture of the River State governor with the caption, Court stops CBN, AGF from releasing allocations to rivers. Fubara will continue to work. Now, the Federal High Court in Abuja yesterday had restrained the Central Bank of Nigeria, CBN, and the Office of the Accountant General of the Federation from releasing further funds to Rivers State's government, pending the appropriate act, which would see a valid constituted House of Assembly. Now, the issues in Rivers State continue to grow. Besides that, you'd find another story on the rider. Traditional rulers to get constitutional role in government. Uzodinma leads panel to prepare bill. Now, above the masthead, 3 feature stories. The first one, Tinubu appoints Major General Oluyede as acting army chief. EFCC arrests refinery MD over $35 million. Brass project fraud. Sanwo-Olu Eno lay 18-floor Ibom Towers foundation in Lagos. Vessels with petrol, Jet A1, others birth in Lagos. And away from the Nation newspaper, another newspaper this morning with quite the similarity capturing the screening of ministerial nominees yesterday at the Red Chambers is the Nigerian News Direct. Let's cross over to its front page and inform you about the headline and other feature stories. Now, to look at the Nigerian News Direct this morning, you'd find the catchphrase in the headline, Cabinet Reshuffle. Cabinet Reshuffle, Senate approves Tinubu's 7 ministerial nominees as total ministerial count hits 48. 48, quite the robust number, and a lot of persons are talking about the need to cut down the cost of governance, but it also is important to note that there are some new ministries created entirely. Whilst there have been a merger of some, there have also been an outright scrapping of others. Does this reflect some of the recommendations in the Stephen Orunsanya report and white paper? We'll find out in our conversation this morning. Whereas above the headline story, you'd find other feature stories. The first one, TCN restores power to 7 northern states. Marketers cite pricing issues for non-patronage of Dangote refinery. Embattled Abia lawmaker faces assault charges, granted 500,000 naira bail. First Bank joins partnership for carbon accounting financials. Tinubu appoints Oluyede as acting chief of army staff. Now, this is quite interesting following the absence of General Taoreed Lagbaja. There has been a new appointment in that stead. Now, just to remind you that this headline story is read only as published according to the editorial guidelines of the various newspapers and are not in any way a position of ADBN Television as it concerns issues in the news. Now, let's pick up the next two papers which mirror the situation as it regards petrol marketers and Dangote refinery. Now, this talk about a bulk purchase deal based on Naira for crude is gaining momentum, but whilst that is the case, there are still lingering fuel queues in major cities, much like in Abuja and in Lagos, where there's also been a hike in the pump price of PMS. We saw in Lagos yesterday that the pump price is now 1,025 naira, whilst in the FCT is 1,050 naira pump price of fuel. Now, two newspapers have headlines in that regard this morning, and they are The Punch and Daily Trust. Now, let's begin with The Punch newspaper as we look at that perspective in the news. On The Punch, you'd find the catchphrase, petrol rising cost. Marketers right Dangote over bulk purchase deal. Ipman, Petroan, refineries, 500 million PMS reserves. Queues in Abuja after NNPCL's price hike. Now, beneath that lead story, you'd find the picture of prominence with the caption, police arrest 1,246 armed dealers. Kidnappers recover 3,172 ammunition in October. A post of those recoveries are captured in those pictures with the names and faces of those arrested as well. On the rider, you have Bianca Ojukwu, other ministerial nominees set for swearing in after Senate confirmation. Computers demand quick repair for damaged Lagos Bridge. Commuters demand repair for damaged Lagos Bridge. Food inflation. 7 imported wheat vessels arrive in Nigeria. Other header stories on The Punch. Fubara appeals as court stops Rivers allocation. Striking university workers vow showdown as FG rebuffs talks. Tinubu appoints Oluyede as acting COAS as Lagbaja undergoes treatment. Now, away from The Punch, quite similarly, would find a headline story is captured on the Daily Trust as it concerns the issues in our petrol supply chain. Now, on the Daily Trust, the editorial headline reads, Dangote marketers in fresh row over sale of petrol. We are ready to buy from private refinery, but marketers, what is that conditionality that warrants the use of bots in this story now? The Daily Trust has more on that on page 4. However, we'd find another strapline, Nigeria's demand fuel price reduction availability. Now, beneath that, you'd find Tinubu appoints Oluyede acting chief of army staff. Senate confirms Dingyadi, Sowabi, Malia for other ministers. Don't take everything IMF World Bank tells you, Jega tells the federal government. Abducted female doctor, nephew regained freedom after 10 months. Atiku cautions court, stops monthly Rivers allocation. Power restored in Kano, Plateau, Bauchi, Gombe, Benue, Kaduna, Nasarawa. I am threatened with Atta as minister, says Senator Hanga. And that's an interesting one on the Daily Trust this morning. Well, whereas the Punch newspaper and Daily Trust look at it from the angle on the bulk purchase deal between petrol marketers and Dangote refinery, the next newspaper looks at it from the angle of the masses. How are Nigerians adjusting to another hike in the price of PMS? In just a 60-day period, the price of PMS has been jacked up 3 times. Not once, not twice, but 3 times. Now, the Vanguard newspaper in its editorial headline this morning has comments coming in from the organized labor. The NLC-TUC are looking at the plight of Nigerians and are beckoning to the federal government. Let's pick up the Vanguard together as we look at that headline. On the Vanguard beneath the masthead, you'd find the headline story, fuel price increase pushing Nigerians to the limit, says Labour. I'll take that again. Fuel price increases pushing Nigerians to the limit, says Labour. They go on to say, government should not be surprised if citizens react in unexpected manner. Subsidy removal worsening production costs. Transportation, others, employer groups say. Marketers spend days at Dangote refinery buying through NNPCL, says Ipman. Adds, marketers will be happier to buy directly from refinery. Argues, Nigerians will see price reduction if marketers buy directly from refinery. Now, other stories making feature on the Vanguard this morning include how poultry packaging cartels fix prices, says the FCCPC boss, Tunji Bello. FG justifies 4 toll gates on Abuja-Kefi Makurdi Expressway. Crash. NCAA dismisses reports on choppers' airworthiness. We are determined to flush out terrorists in Nigeria, says Defense Minister. Ministerial appointments. Senate confirms Bianca Odumegu Ojukwu, 6 others. Atiku, Mosop, others won court. Stops monthly allocations to Rivers. Workers poorer now despite pay increase. Oshomole laments. Money supply increases 64% to 108.95 trillion naira. These are all the feature-worthy stories on the Vanguard this morning. Now, in keeping with more newspapers, I must tell you that over half a dozen of the newspapers this morning have a similarity in their lead story. And this is as it pertains to the court judgment, as the Federal High Court has barred the CBN and the Office of the Attorney General of funding River State until a constituted House of Assembly is reached. Now, a majority of newspapers this morning in their editorial focus feel that this is the biggest news of the day. It is indeed the point of conversation. Now, let's pick them as they come. We'll look at the matrix. We'll delve into this day. We'll also pick up the New Telegraph, Standard Times, The Guardian, Nigerian Tribune, First News, Daily Times, all of whom look at the situation in River State following this court judgment stopping allocations to Rivers. And as history would have it, it is not the first time this is happening. It happened under President Olusegun Obasanjo, where Lagos State was also stopped from receiving allocations. Now let's pick up the papers aforementioned as we look at the headlines together, beginning with the Matrix. Now on the Matrix this morning, you'd find the headline story, outrage trails judgment, halting Rivers allocation. Judicial decision of this nature poses serious threats to Nigeria's democracy, economic stability, says CISLAC. Says CJN must act decisively in maintaining judicial standards. Cautions judges against destabilizing rulings. Nigerians are losing confidence in judiciary, Atiku cries out. Now away from the headline, just above it, you'd find in red, confusion surrounds Lagbaja's fate as Tinubu names Oluyede as acting Chief of Army Staff. Military denies ceding training camps to terrorists. TCN restores power supply in Kano, Kaduna, other northern states. Senate confirms Tinubu's 7 new ministerial nominees. Ipman questions Dangote's 500 million fuel stock claim. Member Ikuje charged for bold driver's assaults granted 500,000 naira bail. Amid backlash, IMF says it stands by advice to Nigerian government on subsidy removal FX. Jega advises FG to reject IMF World Bank's anti-people's policies. Away from the matrix, let's look at This Day newspaper. On the front page of This Day, you'd find history replaying itself in the headline As it reads, like Obasanjo did to Lagos, court stops Rivers allocation under President Tinubu. I'll take that again. Like Obasanjo did to Lagos, court stops Rivers allocation under President Tinubu. Question mounts, can court stop direct constitutional provisions? I was ambushed in peace deal, Fubara declares. Atiku warns judiciary not to set states on fire. Now above that, you'd find inserted just next to the picture of the monarchs as the NGF meets the Council of Traditional Rulers. Economic hardship, NLC to demand further review of workers' salaries. And above the masthead, Oyedele defends new tax bill, says proposed amendments meant to usher fairer templates for VAT distribution. Oyedele defends new tax bill, says proposed amendments meant to usher fairer templates for VAT distribution. Away from this day, our next newspaper is the New Telegraph. And much like you saw on the front page of this day, the headline is still on the court judgment as it pertains to Rivers State's allocation. Let's look at the New Telegraph together. Now, beneath the masthead, you'd find the headline, Fubara, Wike crisis worsens as court stops CBN from releasing allocation to Rivers. Fubara, Wike crisis worsens as court stops CBN from releasing allocations to Rivers. Strapline reads, says, government's 2024 budget not passed by appropriate House of Assembly. Do not put Rivers State on fire. Atiku tells judiciary as mixed reactions greets judgment. Now above that headline are 4 feature stories. The first of which reads, Tinubu appoints Major General Oluyede acting Chief of Army Staff. Next, why electoral offenders prosecution is very slow by INEC. Senate confirms Tinubu's 7 ministerial nominees. Hardship, employers should pay more than 70,000 naira minimum wage, Oshomole advocates. Now on the rider, insecurity. Reps ask FG to stop airstrip licenses to individuals, organizations, withdraw existing approvals. Jakba, energy crisis may lead to varsity system collapse in 2025, according to a university vice chancellor. Now, in keeping with more newspapers, let's also look at the publication on the front page of the Standard Times. On the Standard Times this morning, you'd find the headline, Court bars CBN AGF from releasing Rivers State's monthly allocation. Other feature stories include IYC rejects scrapping of Niger Delta Ministry. FCCPC uncovers cartels inflating food prices in Nigeria. Internet consumption drops first time in past 7 months, according to a report from the NCC. TCN restores power supply in some northern states. 80.2 billion naira fraud. EFCC seeks Yahaya Bello's trial in absentia. They boasted we won't last 1 week in office, says Governor Fubara. Ndume opposes tax increments, aligns with northern leaders. EFCC arrests 80 suspected internet fraudsters in Ofa, Benin. Nigeria to tap from $5 billion global carnival market, says Shetima. Now, more newspapers this morning as we continue to look at the developments as captured by the front pages as regards the Rivers State issue. Now, many are tying it to the role of the FCT Minister Barrister Nyesom Wike and his successor, Governor Siminalayi Fubara. The Guardian newspaper is one of such, as it also accompanies its headline with pictures of the key individuals as it concerns this conversation. Let's pick up The Guardian together. On The Guardian this morning, you'd find pictured there the CJN Justice Kudirat Kekere-Ekun, the Rivers State Governor Siminalayi Fubara, and the FCT Minister Barrister Nyesom Wike, above which you'd find the headline story with the catchphrase, Fubara Wike face off. New twist as Rivers stakeholders fault allocation suspension order. New twist as Rivers stakeholders fault allocation suspension order. That story is continued on the news page 6 of The Guardian. Now, beneath that, you'd have other rider stories. Energy cost. Jakba syndrome will threaten survival of varsity systems. Tax reform bills, Ndume, Arewa Group lock horns as NGF traditional rulers meet. Tinubu appoints Oluyede as acting army chief. Elected officials selfish, undermining citizens' welfare. Jega laments. Governance, Mo Ibrahim report scores Nigeria low. INEC blames non-trial of offenders on outdated laws, others. And lastly, Senate confirms Tinubu's 7 ministerial nominees. Now, much like The Guardian, let's also pick up our last 3 papers with a similarity in this headline feature as it mirrors in the situation in Rivers State. The last 3 are the Nigerian Tribune, the First News, and the Daily Times. All right, let's pick up the Nigerian Tribune now. On the Nigerian Tribune, you find the headline, Fubara talks tough. Atiku warns as court stops CBN from releasing allocation to Rivers. Defection. Court strikes out pro-Wike lawmakers' suit against INEC, PDP, others. Rep moves to revoke Bishop Oyedepo's church airstrip license. Court grants Abia lawmaker 500,000 naira bail over assault on Bolt driver. EFCC arrests 55 Yahoo boys in Ofa. Adeleke denies receiving 8 billion naira Lautech refund. And on the rider, fresh controversies over Northern Governor's opposition to tax reform bills. PANDEF, MBF, ex-YCE chief back planned reforms amendment. VAT amendment on the basis of derivation necessary, says MBF. Arewa Group counters Northern governors. Governors should think out of the box, says financial expert. Ndume backs Northern leaders. VAT sharing proposal will create a fair system for all. And above the masthead, Ipman replies Dangote, marketers spend days at your refinery unable to load petrol. Bianca Ojukwu, 6 others get Senate's confirmation as ministers. Now quickly crossing over to our next newspaper, The First News. On The First News, you'd find the headline story. Rivers in financial limbo. Fubara pledges salaries despite court order. I'll take that again. Rivers in financial limbo. Fubara pledges salaries despite court-ordered allocations freeze. Tinubu loyalists manipulating judiciary to destabilize Rivers, says Atiku. Other feature stories, Nigeria Embassy in Madrid, product of my time, says Bianca Ojukwu. Tax, the wealthy, not the poor, Ndume criticizes FG's tax plan. Tinubu appoints Major General Oluyede as acting COAS to serve until Lieutenant General Lagbaja returns from medical treatment. Senate confirms Tinubu's new ministerial nominees. Army refutes claim of bandits seizing training camps, calls allegation false. Now let's also pick up our next paper with a focus on Rivers State, and that happens to be the Daily Times. On the Daily Times this morning, you'd find the headline, Atiku to judiciary. Don't set Rivers on fire. Atiku to judiciary. Don't set Rivers on fire. Now, and on the rider, you'd find your policies killing Nigerians. PRP tells Tinubu. And away from that, we have some more newspapers coming in. 3 more, as a matter of fact. The Daily Independent, the Business Day, and Blueprint. Now, let's look at the Daily Independent. Another story from Rivers State, but away from the political developments following the court order, is the helicopter crash. Now, that helicopter crash has been over a week now, and whilst a lot of investigations are ongoing, we're told by the Daily Independent that the black box of the crash, and some of the debris are yet to be found. Now, on the Daily Independent, you find the catchphrase, Port Harcourt, crashed helicopter debris yet to be found 1 week after. It is an embarrassing situation for Nigeria, says Cloud Creek. We're not prepared for a search, rescue in aviation, says Badamasi. Malaysian airline plane debris not found 10 years on, replies Sanusi. Now, on the rider, condemnation trail court orders stopping Rivers allocation. Atiku cautions judiciary not to set state on fire. Opposition reps say it is height of judicial rascality. Now let's cross over to the business day. On the business day this morning, away from all the developments, is the headline: Nigeria expects swift resolution on Shell Renaissance deal. That's the headline on the business day. Now, and lastly, the Blueprints newspaper. On the Blueprints this morning, more on the headline as it concerns the 2023 electoral offenders. INEC tackles Serap, says we're not in contempt of court. Above that, you'd find 1 month after Lagbaja's absence, Tinubu appoints Oluyede acting COAS. Well, these are the headline stories as captured on the dailies, and I'm sure with this quick overview, we can get our conversation started. This morning, we'll be having a virtual guest, a constitutional lawyer who is all the way in Arizona. We're being joined by Barrister Elias Ofor on the show this morning, so we can look at some of the issues following the court judgments and, in general, a public affairs analyst perspective of the state of the nation. Now, let's look to establish that connection. If we have Barrister Elias Ofor and we have a good connection, we'll begin that conversation without further ado. Hello, Barrister. Good morning. Can you hear me? Okay. While that conversation is buffering, it's important to remind you that we're active across social media, Facebook, Instagram, and on X. Kindly follow at ADBN_TV. And when you look to react to some of the headlines we have read out on the program this morning, make sure to get your facts right and do it from the perspective of a concerned citizen who is actively looking to contribute to nation building. Kindly refrain from using inflammatory or inciting comments when you look to make your points. No name calling, no insults, and let's keep it civil as we contribute our quota towards building the Nigeria of our dreams. Now, to start with, the first issue in the news is the screening of 7 ministerial nominees, and many are calling it a government of inclusivity, following the fact that one of the parties not largely known in the 2023 elections, or not seen to be an active part in the government, has been included in an appointment many are calling historic. Now, this news was earlier captured by 2 newspapers, and it's with the speed in which the Senate also confirmed the nominees. Mind you, those nominees will be set for swearing in the coming, coming days, and this would also build up to what their portfolios intend to contribute under the renewed hope mandate of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. But away from that, the biggest story of the day has to be the Rivers State situation. Now, many are looking at it from the influence of the executive. The governor himself has said that he was strong-armed into signing a peace accord. Has that peace accord bettered the peace situation in Rivers State? We saw the breakdown of law and order following the conduct of local government elections. And now that the court is saying that until a well-constituted Rivers Assembly is put together, all allocations accruing to Rivers State would be put on hold, from CBN to the Office of the Auditor General of the Federation. Would that deter Rivers State from paying salaries? Because we're listening to the governor also talking about salaries being paid. Mind you, yesterday in the news, we also looked at the fact that only 3 states in Nigeria, or should I say 2, to include the Federal Capital Territory, are self-sustaining, not totally reliant on federal allocations. And that is Lagos, Rivers, and the FCT, whose IGRs are self-sustaining. Is the governor looking to sustain the payments of salaries and the running of the workings on the states based on internally generated revenue? What are the dynamics and how long would it take for the court to resolve this issue? How do they go about constituting a well-meaning Rivers Assembly in keeping with the rule of law? These are some of the pertinent questions we're looking to have Barrister Elias Ofor answer on the show. Now, let's look to reconnect to Barrister Elias Ofor this morning and see if he can join us to share his thoughts as we get this conversation. Now, in that interim, it's important to also point out that some of this debacles and the political impasse, as many would call it in Rivers, has emanated from factions who are loyal to the former Rivers State governor, now the FCT Minister Barrister Nyesom Wike, and those who are loyal to the incumbent governor, Governor Siminalayi Fubara. Now, that fraction has also been reflected in the constituted members of the Rivers State House of Assembly. Now, some of the descriptions as this matter unfolds is as it concerns what the position of the law is on defecting lawmakers. Now, there have been calls that those who defected vacate their seats. But whilst the law hasn't really been interpreted as to what the defection should foretell, do they need to vacate those seats because they came into elected positions under one party's umbrella? And whilst the defection was verbally made, many say they are not card-carrying members of the party they have defected to. Now, this fractionation is not in the best interest of the Rivers people, who at some points have also witnessed large-scale destruction to public facilities, not just because the Rivers State Assembly in itself was burnt down and bulldozed over. There were makeshift arrangements for the constituted assembly to sit in different theaters within the state government house. Now, remember, the taxpayers' money will be used to refurbish and remodel some of these damaged buildings. It will also see the Rivers people, in some stead, question the functionality of their local government secretariats, many of whom also saw that large-scale destruction. Not to also talk about the lives lost. Now, whilst the polity has been visibly heated up in Rivers State, the former Vice President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, Atiku Abubakar, has been most vocal in the news this morning. He is cautioning the judiciary to refrain from setting Rivers State on fire owing to such judgments. Now, the dynamics is as to how Rivers State, in its stead, would manage the situation on ground. Now, let's refer to some of the comments coming in yesterday as we look at the perspective of the Rivers State governor. He says, quotably, "We'll continue working." That's one of the headlines. We will continue working, regardless of if the allocations are stopped. Now, the Federal High Court in Abuja yesterday has restrained Nigeria's Apex Bank, the Central Bank of Nigeria, and the Accountant General of the Federation from releasing further funds to Rivers State's government pending when a lawful appropriation act is passed by a valid constituted House of Assembly. The court has barred banks from allowing the Rivers State government and Governor Sir Siminalayi Fubara to withdraw from the state's accounts. Now, Justice Joy Abdulmalik is the one who issued the order in a judgment with a suit filed by the Rivers State House of Assembly and Martins Amahuelu as Speaker. The plaintiffs alleged unauthorized withdrawals of the funds from the Rivers State's Consolidated Revenue Funds accounts by Governor Siminalayi Fubara. That is where this major issue has continued to garner some of the attention the media is casting on it this morning. Well, whilst that is the case, instead, we'll take a short break, and when we return, we'll also look at other news reports and issues around today's conversation. Do well to stay with us.
Welcome to the Niger Delta, a region of incredible beauty and stark contrast. From its breathtaking landscapes to its rich cultural heritage, this is a place where history and modernity collide. But beneath this serene surface lies a story of struggle and resilience. The Niger Delta is the lifeblood of Nigeria's economy, home to vast oil reserves that fuel the nation, yet it is a land where the people fight for their share of the wealth. Join us on the program Niger Delta Today as we explore the heart of the Niger Delta, discover the vibrant cultures, the struggles for environmental justice, and the stories of the people who call this place home. This is the Niger Delta, a land of contrast, a story of resilience, a journey of hope. Don't miss our exclusive series, Niger Delta Today, every day at 12 noon, only on ADBN TV. Witness the untold stories, experience the journey, be part of the change.
Welcome to the world where innovation meets opportunity, where ideas become empires. This is Market TV.
I am Idorian Flannan, and every week I'll be taking you inside the dynamic world of marketing and commercial business.
From groundbreaking startups to big businesses, Market TV brings you the best pricing and latest goods on display.
It's all about understanding your audience and staying ahead of the trends.
Witness the creative processes that drive the various brands.
Join us as we dive deep into the strategies that shape the commercial landscape. From streets to traditional advertising and social media, we cover it all.
Whether you're a seasoned professional or an aspiring entrepreneur, Market TV provides the insights you need to thrive.
This show gave us the tool to turn our vision into reality.
So, if you're ready to master the market, tune into Market TV every Saturday at 6 p.m.
No matter wetin I see, enough fit make mouth heavy to talk am. That's now why people they talk.
You know wetin dey worry you, but you no go fit take help yourself.
In this kind of situation now, what if they really no talk to una? Wetin be the way forward?
They go bury our chairman on Thursday. We go remain here.
Make we talk good where we dey see good, and where we know say we not dey see good, make we also dey talk am.
No woman, no mother deserve to know the grave of his child.
The bank manager, the bank executive, they are the one the government should first pay.
People They Talk, the show on Monday to Friday by 5 p.m. on top ADBN TV.
In a world of overwhelming voices where everyone has different opinion on different issues, it is important that we bring the core issue to the fore. Join me, Nancy Banigo, on Softline as we lend our voices to inform and influence your thoughts and actions. This is not just mere talk, it is an invocative program that touches the core of our existence.
Step into the heartbeat of the world where news meets real talk. From breakthroughs in diplomacy to humanitarian challenges and scientific milestones, Global Digest takes you beyond the headlines and straight to the heart of the matter. I am Amma Marcus. Be a part of the world unfolding stories at 3 p.m. on ADBN, channel 258 on DSTV, and Star Times, channel 140. Global Digest, your window to the world's current affairs, only on Advocate Broadcasting Network.
Well, thanks for staying with us on the program this morning. Without further ado, let's see if we can re-establish contacts with Barrister Elias Ofor, who joins the show virtually from Arizona. Hello, Barrister. Good morning to you. Can you hear me? Well, whilst I'm still trying to make out if this connection is as clear as it should be, can you hear me?
I can hear you. If you can't hear me.
Brilliant. I can hear you now. Thank you for making our time to join the program. And let's begin with one of the most pressing issues in the news this morning as it concerns the cabinet reshuffle. Now, many have talked about the bow and go tradition on the floor of the Red Chambers. Yesterday, we did see 7 ministerial nominees quite not really grilled since their portfolios were attached and they were hastily screened. But standout is the moment where people are talking about a government of inclusion where ABGA also has gotten a ministerial nomination. How historic is this and what does this imply for a government of national unity?
Quite historic actually. I have seen the wife of the late Civil War veteran. To a very good extent, that is quite commendable. But you still need to balance the equation. We still have to bear in mind that the multi-ethnic nature of Nigeria should be countenanced in anything the government of the day is doing. The Chief of Army Staff, I've seen the appointment. It still has a lot to tell about the equation that I'm talking about. It's a diverse country in terms of ethnicity, in terms of some other factors that we have talked about so much in Nigeria, that has to always be borne in mind by any government of the day. I do not have to overflow this issue, because the previous government, that was one of the things in the front burner before they hanged their boot. So the president should bear that in mind. It is very important. Nigeria is one of the most educated community when you come in any part of the world. We have people that are qualified from other places. We should always know that. In terms of appointment, in terms of politicking and the rest of them, we are too diverse. So that should always be borne in mind. Federal character, so to speak. Even though that should not be sacrificed on the altar of meritocracy, but we should know that in as much as we want to be together in this union, other ethnic nationalities should be considered in appointments. That's all I have to say now.
Now, I'm talking about some of the comments that she has made. The Honorable Minister Bianca Odumego Ojukwu has also said credit needs to be given to her for the Nigerian embassy in Madrid. She said it was her working in her time there. Do you agree with that comment?
Sorry, come again with that, please.
She says that the Nigerian embassy in Madrid is part of her workings following her time there, and credit needs to be given to her.
Yeah, credit should be given to her. I think while in Madrid, she performed creditably well. She had no blemish in anywhere. I didn't see anything, any accusing finger going to her for non-performance. That scorecard actually was countenanced, presumably, by the government in that appointment. I think that's a statement in the right direction.
Now,
except there's something else that here.
No, that would do. Moving away from that issue, let's also pick up another issue in the news that has continued to elicit mixed reactions. Now, Dangote has come out to tell Nigerians that he has over 500 million liters of PMS in reserve, but the marketers are disagreeing with him that it takes quite a lengthy time to be able to load products from his refinery, and hence the reason why they prioritize importing refined products of PMS. How does Nigeria go about this bulk purchase deal with the Naira for crude deal aiding in the reduction of the lengthy queues we're seeing at filling stations in Nigeria? Do you think there's a better way of brokering a quicker deal between Dangote and petrol marketers?
Anyway, Dangote should look down deep to see that there's no sabotage in his effort to supply enough fuel, because I do not know what is going on. We had that information that Dangote Refinery could service Nigeria and service Nigerians equitably well. But marketers complain that it takes them quite a long time to buy fuel from his factory. I do not know what is going on. There seems to be a disconnect in that particular situation. Because a refinery of that capacity should be able to have enough output. At a point, I learned they started exporting to Ghana, or Ghana became interested in buying from Dangote. And then Nigeria is still not enough. Nigeria is still not getting enough from that particular refinery. So he should look down deep to see what is going on. I know that when it comes to Nigeria, a lot of things happen. Interest here and there, like we had always said. We wouldn't know what is going on. But the point is that at this point in time, that report should not be coming from marketers. It shouldn't be in any way. It shouldn't be in any way, because this refinery they made us understand that this refinery is home and dry, is ready to go. Now that we should have a sigh of relief, anguish is what you still hear in different quarters. It shouldn't be in that way. Honestly. I do not know what is going on. Dangote should stand on his feet and probably set up a committee in his company to check what exactly is going on. It is not just about media hype and all that. It's about knowing what is going on, what is happening, checking one or two Nigerian factors that are affecting his productivity.
Now, Barrister Elias, another interesting angle to this conversation is that whilst the global price of crude has dropped, the NNPCL, who is the sole importer of refined products into Nigeria, has chosen to hike the price in PMS for the third time in 60 days. I don't know, but does this concern you following the econometrics that having Dangote refinery in Lagos sort of reduces the landing cost of refined PMS? So does it make any sense that the NNPCL has chosen to hike this price for a third time in 3 months?
Honestly, we keep saying the same thing over and over again. It is a government I fail to understand. Why they are strangulating Nigerians is what I fail to understand at this point. I have said it that a little here, a little there doesn't mean that you are as low as a snail. It is becoming so excruciating. Nigerians have lost purchasing power to anything. It is high time we call for accountability in this policy formulation and policy implementation. It is high time communication goes to the right quarters. They should tell Nigerians what this particular policy is all about. The indices are no longer clear. It's becoming so confusing. The increase in price of fuel every now and then is what I do not understand where the government is driving at. Honestly, I understand actually that certain steps need to be taken to revamp the economy. It is becoming too early in the day to embark on all this. I think they should take it easy to a very great extent. They should take it easy. It's becoming too strangulating. I don't know what is going on. I have said it before now that we all are educated. We know that there are tough steps to be taken to revamp the economy. But when it becomes too tough on the people, then you need to have a rethink. You just need to have a rethink. What is happening in Nigeria is what I cannot personally understand. I am not saying it because probably maybe I heard the government or anything, but you could hear the cry of Nigerians. That's one fact that is very clear. The increase in pump price of fuel every now and then is calling for concern. There are some other areas that the government should look at. Look at the sector of agriculture. Look at some other areas, the cottage industry here and there that you need to set up. Then bringing up a safety net that you shoulder the harsh realities of the economy of the policies that you are implementing. I have not seen this happen in a very great extent, so to speak.
Now, some of the sentiments that you share are indeed re-echoed by organized labor. Our third item in the news this morning has comments from the organized labor, particularly on Vanguard newspaper, where they said that the government needs to be cautious because the patience of Nigerians are growing thin. Now, it's happening at a time where despite a 70,000 naira minimum wage with different states even improving upon it, the implementation is somewhat also hampered by a cost of living crisis where the purchasing power parity doesn't even afford Nigerians the opportunity to maximize their earnings and be able to deal with the effects of the hike in the price of PMS. Now, organized labor is talking about another negotiation for conditionalities to improve the living standards of Nigerians. What do you make of this calls from labor?
At this particular point, 70,000 naira, 80,000 naira, they are too meager. They are quite meager for Nigerians to come to terms with. Look at the naira against the dollar against the naira. Naira is on a free fall. It has lost grip on the realities of the time. Look at the score line. Look at what is going on. In 3 days, you would see, I have never seen this in any part of the world. It is becoming Zimbabwe of the old. For crying out loud, it is just something else. It's something that I cannot understand. Nigerians cannot understand. 80,000 naira, what can it buy in the present time? That is a big question that the government should grapple with. Because when you're talking about the minimum wage or the living wage or whatever you call it, it is no longer anything presently. Labor should stand to their feet. Nigerians should stand up and face this. They should not just sit down there I've been looking as if somebody is dragging them to wherever. I don't know. What I'm trying to say is that we are docile. We are docile. We should cry out for the government to understand the realities, to understand what Nigerians are facing. Labour, it is beyond negotiation at this point. Labour should walk up to the government and tell them what is going on. Perhaps they do not know. The news is getting tighter on the throat of Nigerians. The news is quite getting tighter. The hue and cry in every nooks and crannies of Nigeria, it is getting to an alarming crescendo. The government should stand up to terms to come to terms with this. It is no longer Uhuru. It is no longer a child's play. People could not purchase the basic things for themselves. People could no longer feed at least 2 times a day. We are not even talking about 3 times a day. The realities, the harsh realities of the economy, it's crushing Nigerians. People can no longer afford basic things, to move around, to carry out the activities, to feed, to work safe, because it breeds in every sector. The security is another thing, because when the economy becomes so hard in this particular way, people start looking for other means to survive. The government is not looking at this. I do not know, because when you see these policy formulations and all that, it keeps on going on. You don't hear anything about slowing down to say, okay, let us see what welfarian mechanism we could bring up to shoulder this. Nobody's saying that. CNG here, free transport and all that, you only hear about that in the news. You don't see the practical reality of some of these comments. They are just political statements here and there. To what extent have some of these things, mechanisms have been brought up to shoulder these harsh economic policies?
Now, it's not only just the organized labor that is making comments and expressing their frustrations over the current cost of living crisis. A former labor leader, now a senator in the 10th Assembly, Senator Adams Oshiomhole, has said, and I quote, "Workers poorer now despite pay increase," unquote. Is this indeed the harsh reality we're facing?
Exactly, absolutely. That is the harsh reality. That's the harsh reality. 70,000 naira, even 100,000 naira, can't buy anything in the market. It cannot do anything. I mean, and the worst part of it is that if you have anybody out here, if you have anybody probably you're spending a dollar on, or maybe you have anything in the global market that you want to do with currency, that you want to use the international currency to buy or trade, you cannot do anything. The point is that it has reached that point where Nigerians should stand up and face it. They should call the government.
We're talking about standing up and facing it in terms of Nigeria's approach to these issues. The IMF and World Bank, the Bretton Woods institutions, have advised the government, particularly the government of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. Now, people like Professor Jega are calling it anti-people policies. But despite that, the IMF and World Bank are standing by their advice. How does Nigeria stand up in spite of this difference in opinion?
The neo-colonialist tendencies of some of these international bodies should be addressed. Of course, you see what is happening in the Sahel. The wind that is blowing across the Sahel, you have seen the dividends day by day. This reality should come up to every Nigerian. That is what we're talking about.
This wind you're talking about might be misconstrued. I'd like for you to put it in clear terms. The wind blowing across the Sahel, is this the Sahelian states that have removed themselves from ECOWAS, or what sort of wind are you talking about?
The wind I'm talking about is standing up to say you cannot dictate the pace in this age and time. We have peculiarities that should be addressed.
But now it now happens to be done through what many call unconstitutional coup d'etats.
No. I'm not calling for a coup d'etat. That's not what I'm talking about. It is not the only means to address the excesses of the government. There are some other quarters where you can call the government account, where you can face them and tell them this is becoming so excruciating. People should air their voice. I mean, we have had protests in the past. We shouldn't sit down there and Labour is negotiating this and negotiating that.
But Labour in itself dissociated itself from the bad governance protest And many were asking if Labour is dissociating itself. How do we look at history in terms of the Occupy Nigeria protest to replicate it, whereby even the current president was part of that protest?
I mean, it's a very shameful thing that the policies that they stood against is what they're embarking upon in a very excruciating way. It is very shameful, speaking from both sides of the mouth. We forget so soon. It is not quite long that they did that. I mean, it's very shameful. But what we're talking about in the present time is that Nigerians should stand up against all these excesses. There's nothing wrong with peaceful protest. If the fear is that it's going to be beaten out of proportion, the security agencies know what to do. In other parts of the world, these things have happened. We've seen people holding government to account. We've seen policy overturn, policy reversal in many other quarters. We've seen what happened in Kenya. Even though certain things happen, of course, revolution is not a tea party. We're not even talking about revolution at this point. We are saying Nigeria should speak out. We shouldn't just sit there and saying T-Pain or whatever. No, we should stand up to tell the government what they're not doing right. It is not about the econometric. It's not about the indices. It's not about jargons and technicalities. It is about the reality looking us in the face. It's about the reality that Nigerians could no longer breathe, which is quite a mantra chanted when the president came in. That's exactly the string he's pulling, unfortunately. Nigerians could no longer come to terms with the reality of the time. People can no longer feed. It is not a figurative statement. It is a reality. It is a very clear thing looking everybody in the face. We can no longer continue to pretend. Nigerians are so pretentious. They should stand up to tell the government of the day that their policies are quite excruciating. It is crushing them. It is stifling them. It is making them not to even stand up to face themselves. They can no longer fend for themselves. I know what is happening in that country. That is just it. The government should know that this is getting out of hand. The government should know that this is out of proportion. The government should know that Nigerians are dying. That is what it should be.
Now, the government of the day under the Renewed Hope agenda is also asking for patience. Now, owing to the projections...
What kind of patience is that, Bito?
We're looking at the projections where they're saying that it would take a while for Nigeria's economy to be back on track. In that while, do you think that there are other interventions the government can put in place to ameliorate the sufferings of Nigerians?
Before I answer your question, let me ask you my own question.
Where
are the dividends of the policies? Where is the removal of oil subsidy removal windfall in my own simple terms? Where are the benefits? What is coming out of it? Are Nigerians seeing it already?
Many are saying that is to blame on the state governors because there have been increased FAC allocations, yet most states cannot say that those subsidy shortfalls are reflected in their states.
Pardon? What did you say?
Many are saying that the windfalls of subsidy removal, much like you're asking, are now domiciled with the state governments, and the state governors are to blame for the lack of visibility following the windfalls of subsidy removal.
I don't understand. We are talking of a federal government. We are talking of the government at the center that's accountable to Nigerians, and you're blaming it on the states.
Those are comments coming in from the presidency. They're saying that President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has fought for local government autonomy and so cannot be blamed if the windfalls of subsidy are not getting down to the masses. Do you think that this is propaganda?
I mean, I don't know where that is coming from. I don't know where that is coming from. Is that what you told Nigerians when you came up to rule? Is that the promises you made to them? Of course, we know the indices of the government. We know how government functions. You cannot isolate yourself and start blaming. Okay, it's no longer the time to blame your predecessors. Now it is the state governors. Oh my God. I mean, is that the governors that you're going to blame? So the president at the center cannot call the governors to account. There are the mechanisms, the system of governance where you can hold the governors to account or call your people to order, for crying out loud. But the truth of the matter is that the central government, which is the federal government, owe Nigerians a lot. That's what it is. You cannot blame it on the state governors. You cannot blame it on the state governors. Your manifestos are there. Your economic policies are there. Now it is a time to say that it's governors that are stifling it. That's not quite true. That's not quite true. In as much as the governors have their duties to perform, the central government, the federal government, should be seen to be working. Your policies should be seen to be yielding the required dividends. That's what it is. We know the Constitution of Nigeria, we know the concurrent legislative list, and we know the exclusive legislative list. Those in the exclusive legislative list, what have you done about it? Those in the residual, then let us say you have no grip on that. But the one in the exclusive legislative list, what is happening there? What is happening there? Energy is there. Even the natural resources, which includes the petroleum, is there. What is happening in that sector? Which drives the economy in a very cardinal terms. Then are you going to blame that on the governors? I mean, I don't understand it. We have this sophistry in governance. We have all these grammar technicalities. Before you know it, they complete their terms. The next government that will come in will start blaming their predecessor. It goes on and on. It's a vicious circle. Unfortunately, this is too bad in Nigeria. It's too bad for Nigerians. It is time to hold them to account. It's time to ask them what is going on. Nigerians should not remain docile. We are too complacent. People are getting tired and they cannot speak out. The activists are so distracted. They should face what is happening. They should leave frivolities alone. Face the government and tell them what they are not doing right. It is not the time for technicalities. It is not the time to blame it on IMF or whatever international body that is driving all this charade. Nigeria government should know that it is time to sit down and then check their scorecard. Go back to the drawing board. See what they are not doing right. I'm not even here to start doing our technicalities or start doing some economic terms and all that.
Now this next issue in the news, Barrister, this next issue in the news demands technicalities as it is based on the rule of law. Having left the issues of the federal government, we're coming to the issue of a state in Nigeria that over time has elicited conversations on its State House of Assembly and what would constitute a proper appropriation act. Yesterday, we saw a ruling from a federal high court in Abuja that has now barred Rivers State government from receiving any allocations from CBN or from the Accountant General of the Federation. This is another very technical issue in that stead. And I remember we had talked about the fractions in the assembly and how Rivers can go about what is demanded to obtain this allocation. What do you make of this court judgment, and how does Rivers State approach the matter of a lawful appropriation act?
Yeah. Anyway, the best approach is just to appeal such judgment. I do not see it seeing the light of the day. Of course, it is their fundamental obligation to get allocation to run the activities of the state. Be that as it may, the judgment is a judgment. It's for the state government to do what they are supposed to do. We have seen similar judgments in the past. Of course, there are Supreme Court judgments in that light. We have the Attorney General of Abia State against Attorney General of the Federation in terms of resource allocation and all that. There's Attorney General of Lagos State also against the Attorney General of the Federation. We've seen that how they were resolved. At the end of the day, in terms of that of Lagos, at the end of the day, they were able to get their pending allocations. So it is hoped that Rivers State should appeal such judgment. Judgment of the court is judgment of the court. The court is functions official in terms of the matters they grappled with. So that is just it. So, but the bottom line is that whatever crisis are going on in Rivers State, we should not continue to pay lip service to it. I've said it in the last session that government should put their feet on the floor, especially the president, to make sure that issues in Rivers State are resolved.
One person who quite rightly agrees with you, Barrister, is the former Vice President Alhaji Atiku Abubakar. But in agreeing with what you just said, he has added another clause to it. He has now accused loyalists of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu of plotting to destabilize Rivers. Do you think that there's some sort of underhand dealing in this court's judgment? Because what he's saying is undermining the judgment in some stead of saying it is being influenced.
Yeah, actually, of course. At a point, fingers have gone to the present Minister of FCT. I've seen that in the news where they say that he has a grip on the judiciary. It might not be very far from the truth. That is not saying that it is true, actually. But from what is happening, it's quite obvious that something is not right. I don't want to start faulting the court judgment because it is the right of the state to appeal it. But what I'm trying to say is that out of every smoke, of course, they say there's no smoke without fire or something. To an extent, that is true. When you see what is happening in Rivers State, it became overbearing at a particular point. And the present FCT minister, former governor of Rivers State, had made some statements. Of course, out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaketh. You've seen how that state has been destabilized over time. The governor has been maximally distracted. He can no longer even sit down to face the governors, to face what he's doing in the state. And of course, he had made it clear that the wreckage is not over. That whatever is going on rages on, that it continues in the whole thing. I thought at a point all these things would stop. But for a person in the government, in the place of the minister, coming out to make statement to the public, capable of various innuendos, capable of interpretations to the fact that he is complicit in what is happening to Rivers, and nobody has called him to order. It says a lot about the kind of environment you're occupying in Nigeria in terms of governance.
Now let's also look at the other angle to this story. Whilst the FCT minister, like you said, has made comments that are quite concerning, comments coming in from the governor seem to be daring. Governor Siminalayi Fubara has said, despite this court judgment, he is assuring workers in Rivers State of uninterrupted salaries. And many are pointing to the IGR of Rivers State as probably the backbone of such a boast. Do you think so?
Absolutely. You know, in terms of IGR, yeah, definitely. In terms of IGR, you know that Rivers State is one of the states, yes, that quite up there. They are top notch in terms of IGR.
So that means that Rivers State can survive without federal allocations, and the Scotch judgment might not really even carry the weight.
They can survive without the allocation, but they should not stay without the allocation. To a very great extent, it's going to hamper governance. It's going to hamper productivity from the governor. It's going to hamper everything he owes the people. The people should survive. The people should survive. So it shouldn't be, we can survive, we can do without you guys. It should be about how do we resolve this issue? How do we hold these people to terms? How do we go back to tell them that we know our rights? That's what it should be. But in the interim, I think that's quite clear. That's a very good one from a leader. It shows a leader that knows his onions, a leader that knows what to do at a particular time, a leader that is not scared of the dark. That's what it shows. I commend him for that, for taking that bold step. But there are precedents. Of course, during the time of Lagos State conundrum in terms of allocation and all that, they fought it out. And then at the end of the day, the light came up at the end of the tunnel. I think they should toe that line. I do not see that judgment standing the test of time. I think it will definitely bow to legal pressures and all that.
Now,
so
sorry to cut you. You can conclude. Conclude before I ask my next question.
So the government knows what to do. The Rivers State government, they already know what to do. They know what to do. Yes.
Now, whilst commendations are coming in for Rivers State, this has exposed 32 other states in Nigeria who reportedly depend on FAC for 55% of revenue in their states. 14 others depend on FAC for 70% of revenue in their states. Now, these poor IGR status of states is also questioning their sustainability at a time when local government autonomy is also gaining grounds. How can states better their IGR? Many talk about rivers having oil. Many talk about Lagos being the big commercial hub, and the FCT having the sustainability of being the center of power. Some other states have untapped resources and improving IGR. Is this a time for a rude reawakening for such states?
To an extent, it is. To another extent, there are certain things that are not fundamentally right. And in one angle, the states should sit up to face the realities of the time, to beef up their IGR in a very good way. But without enabling laws, without enabling environment, without things being put in place to do that, it becomes a practical impossibility, especially for certain states. Anyway, the worrisome part of this is that I've seen the cost of governance in some of these states outweighing, in fact, almost 200%, some reaching up to 300% of the IGR. That's the rude awakening we're talking about. That is a harsh reality. It shouldn't be like that. It should not be like that. But you know that the oil economy have actually brought in a whole lot of dilemma in terms of Nigerian realities. The oil economy, the allocation we're talking about, when money comes in millions of dollars, and then you don't look down to see what you are generating, it's a very big issue. It's quite a conundrum. It's quite a conundrum. But going back to what I said, without the enabling laws, without the right laws to say, okay, tap your resources, because when you're talking of constitutional democracy, or talking of federalism, it is government at the center, then the federating states being able to tap their resources. For instance, Nasarawa State, that is rich in natural resources, there's nothing wrong in amending the law to allow them to tap their resources. It shouldn't be on the exclusive legislative list. The federating states should be able to tap their resources. That is the only way you can now say, yes, what are you generating? If I do not have a seaport like Lagos, I do not have a so and so thing like other states that are generating a whole lot of IGR, how do you want me to do it? Electricity is not even stable. How do you want me to do it? Power is in the exclusive legislative list. Are we generating our own yet? Do we have the capacity to do that? That drives the economy to a very great extent. In advanced countries of the world, when you're talking of industrialization, when you're talking of better infrastructure, you talk of power. The trains are moving. What are they using here? It's electricity. So many things are electricity driven. I was in South Africa that ordinary ATM machine could not function if the electricity is not on. In fact, when the electricity goes off, a lot of things go off. That's to an extent to show you cardinal things that drive the economy. That is not the situation in Nigeria. We are still talking about electricity at this age of time. The megawatts that is being generated, when you look at it, you cry for Nigeria. And the grid keep collapsing every now and then. And no explanation to that. Nobody to hold to account. The same story every now and then. When things become abysmal, when things go wrong, there's nobody to account. Nobody comes to say, yes, this is what is happening. It is going to be blamed on this or that. I have never seen anybody resigning in Nigeria because of blunder. No politician has ever done that. It has never happened. Rather, the government of the day will shield it. It will end in sophistry. It will end in grammar. And that is the end of it. Nigerians will forget it the next minute. So what are we talking about? What kind of IGR are we talking about? When there are indices are not there, when the fundamental things to drive that economy is not there, when the laws are not amended to give them that leverage to go ahead and generate the IGR, how are they going to do that? Okay, everybody should go back to the farm. What are you going to farm with? Where is the security to farm? I know states like Benue that can feed the whole of the whole of southern Nigeria. Benue State can do that. Benue State can feed the whole of southern Nigeria. The farmers are killed in their numbers. How can they do that? We are talking of IGR. We are talking of IGR. When I did my youth service in Benue, people were coming from Cameroon to buy food from Benue State, but not anymore. Not anymore, Bito. So what Nigeria are you talking about?
Oh, quite.
Where's environment to do that?
Quite the pressing issues that we're dealing with in Nigeria. In closing, because we have 5 more minutes before we wrap up this segment, a grand event took place at the presidential villa yesterday, where we saw members of the Nigerian Governors Forum in a meeting with the Traditional Rulers Council, and we gathered that it's about constitutional amendments to create a constitutional role for traditional rulers that would also be backed by funding. How monumental is this? And do you think it is indeed some of the driving tools to ensure that every tier of governments, including the traditional stool, contributes its quota towards building the Nigeria of our dream?
To an extent, I think if that should be given a hand, I think that would be quite a very good thing to a very great extent. Yes, the traditional institution in Nigeria should not be ignored. I mean, when you look at it very well, you find out that that's part of the area we are not getting it right. We have left most of the norms that we should put into place to aid initiatives, to aid even technology. When you look at the fundamental basis of technology, it cannot be divorced from traditional norms. I'm not what do they call it? But that is by the way. But the truth of the matter is that the traditional institution should not just be sidelined completely. If this is handled effectively, I think it will yield its required dividends. It's going to help in innovations and all that. It's going to help in some of the endeavors Nigerians should embark upon that have cultural underpinnings. It entails a lot. And again, the culture of the people cannot be taken away from them. And that's what it should be. For instance, in South Africa, the traditional institution has a great role to play in terms of land governance, in terms of bridging the gap between the government at the center and the traditional people and all of that. Yeah, but the major thing here is for it to be handled very well. It should not be an engine of distraction, an engine of corruption, like we have seen in Nigeria a whole lot of times. It should be something that should be conscientiously done, something that should be efficiency should be the hallmark of that particular activity. That's what it should be. But traditional institution is very important, especially in a place like Nigeria, multi-ethnic country like Nigeria. You cannot take that away. You cannot take that away.
Well, we must thank you, Barrister Elias Ofor. Time is fast spent as we've looked at almost all the issues of note in the news this morning, particularly as captured on the front pages. We appreciate you for taking our time to join the conversation.
Yeah, thank you very much, Peter. Thank you for having me.
All right, enjoy the rest of your day. Well, this is as much as time will permit for us to review headline stories and issues in the news on the local scenes. We'll take a quick break, and when we return, we'll give you another overview, but this time of foreign publications and tabloids from across the globe, before we now discuss our main topic in our concluding segment. To catch this, do also stay tuned.
Welcome to the Niger Delta, a region of incredible beauty and stark contrast. From its breathtaking landscapes to its rich cultural heritage, this is a place where history and modernity collide. But beneath this serene surface lies a story of struggle and resilience. The Niger Delta is the lifeblood of Nigeria's economy, home to vast oil reserves that fuel the nation, yet it is a land where the people fight for their share of the wealth. Join us on the program Niger Delta Today as we explore the heart of the Niger Delta, discover the vibrant cultures, the struggles for environmental justice, and the stories of the people who call this place home. This is the Niger Delta, a land of contrast, a story of resilience, a journey of hope. Don't miss our exclusive series, Niger Delta Today, every day at 12 noon, only on ADBN TV. Witness the untold stories, experience the journey, be part of the change.
Step into the heartbeat of the world, where news meets real talk. From breakthroughs in diplomacy to humanitarian challenges and scientific milestones, Global Digest takes you beyond the headlines and straight to the heart of the matter. I am Amma Marcus. Be a part of the world's unfolding stories at 3 p.m. on ADBN, channel 258 on DSTV, and Star Times, channel 140. Global Digest, your window to the world's current affairs, only on Advocate Broadcasting Network.
All right, welcome back, and let's jump straight into our overview of what the foreign newspapers have as headline stories. Now, to begin with, we'll start in the UK, where we'll take a look at the front page of the Daily Mail this Thursday. Leading the headline on the Daily Mails this morning is as it concerns tax reforms. Now you'd have the Chancellor Rachel Reeves boldly pictured in front of this with some of the telltale stories following her proposals. The headline reads, Reeves' £40 billion tax bombshell for Britain's streavers. Record hike will take tax burden to highest level ever. Borrowing will soar on the public spending splurge. Businesses are hammered and pensions hit by inheritance raid. Wages heat and growth to stall, while mortgages and inflation rise. 25 pages of report and unrivaled analysis. Now, Britain's growth prospects have taken a dive, and it was occasioned on last night's comments after Chancellor Rachel Reeves' £40 billion tax bomb. Now, this is one of the most left-wing budgets for decades, and the Chancellor has put taxes to their highest level in the history of Britain, and this has made a relaxed borrowing on the part of the government's rules to finance massive spendings. Now, it's on how families would cope with this, whilst if you put it in perspective, back in Nigeria, the tax reform bills is gaining momentum, whilst our colonial masters in Britain are also talking about quite the same perspective. This brings into question comments on the Bretton Woods institution and the heritage they have left in their wake. Now, still similar to this coverage, we'll look at the publication on the Daily Mirror. On the Daily Mirror this morning, taking a look at the front page, you'd also find the catchphrase, Historic 2024 Budget, with Chancellor Rachel Reeves' picture in the cards. The caption is Spending Power. Straplines read, Record cash to transform NHS and schools. £40 billion tax hike as tough choice made. Reeves sets out her plan to rebuild Britain. Career boost income tax and fuel duty frozen. Well, away from this, it is indeed the most prominent story across major dailies on the foreign since this morning. Even the Financial Times has a picture of Chancellor Rachel Reeves with her now infamous red purse, capturing the 2024 budget for Britain. It is indeed the picture of prominence we would see on the Financial Times. You'd find Rachel Reeves there, captured beneath the masthead, with the caption, Reeves unveils £40 billion budget tax raise. Chancellor's plan aimed at fixing broken finances and public services. Businesses and wealthy bear bulk of heaviest fiscal burden in generations. Sharp surge in borrowing to fund extra £100 billion of capital spending. The writer reads, Chancellor's blockbuster breakthrough manifesto matrix. Much like the Financial Times, let's also look at the front page of The Guardian. The Guardian, in its editorial headline, reads, Return of Tax and Spend. Return of Tax and Spend. Reeves tells businesses it is a must bear brunt of £40 billion in tax increases. Chancellor raises spending by £70 billion a year over the next 5 years. Huge injection of funds into NHS and cash boost for schools. Now, one thing that the media might not be highlighting, which is part of the talking points and applause for why this tax raise in the UK is important, is because Chancellor Rachel Reeves believes that this improved funding to tax revenue would better the healthcare system through improved funding for the NHS, and not just the NHS alone. she's choosing to prioritize education, saying that a bulk of this tax revenue would be targeted towards improving the standard of education and the learning atmosphere in schools in the UK. An interesting leaf to borrow from, I believe you think. Now, in keeping with that, the Times newspaper is looking at it from this perspective. On the Times, the caption is a record tax burden. Despite the intentions by Chancellor Richard Reeves, the Times in its editorial guideline says, Budget 2024, what it means for you and your family. In that perspective, a record tax burden. How do families cope with this? Well, the Chancellor is signaling a £32 billion a year surge in public borrowing. Economists say growth would stall as OBR downgrades forecast. Now, quite an interesting time, and the Times newspaper has put this in perspective with more infographics in the lead story. Chancellor Richard Reeves seen carrying her infamous red box that houses the 2024 budget just outside number 11 Downing Street before the budget presentation, and how she believes she would restore public finance and fix the NHS. Now let's leave the Times and pick up the Yorkshire Post. On the Yorkshire Post this morning, still on Chancellor Richard Reeves, she is the woman to follow this morning across major headline stories. £40 billion tax raise to rebuild Britain, Chancellor to scrap freeze on personal tax thresholds, borrowing to increase to invest in public services. Away from the Yorkshire Post, the Daily Telegraph is the next as well. On the Daily Telegraph, much is the same, but it has the caption with a Halloween caricature of Chancellor Richard Reeves holding her infamous red box, but this time in the spirit of Halloween, it is a pumpkin-faced 2024 budget box. The caption is Nightmare on Downing Street. Is Chancellor Richard Reeves trick-or-treating? In the popular Halloween phrase, it's one of those questions we'll be asking those in the UK. Crossing over to the Australian, one of the paper that rests the caricature with the Halloween depiction of Chancellor Richard Reeves, it is far away from that. Its focus on the Australian this morning is a build-up to the US presidential election. You'd find the picture of prominence with VP Kamala Harris at her campaign ground. The caption above that photograph is Echoes of Deplorables. Trash-talking Biden ruins Harris's big night with garbage quip. Next to that, you'd have the prominent caption, Peel Bricks versus the Miners, round 2. Whilst on the right are two feature stories, interest rate stock at your service. Pig-headed knows it all, adding insults to illness. The Australian seems not to be focused much on the situation in the UK, and it's turning its attention to the build-up to campaigns as the US election intensifies. Now we have a couple of more papers, 3 to be factual, that would look at before we call it a wrap on the foreign newspaper review segment. Now we have the Houston Chronicle. On the Houston Chronicle this morning, you'd find beneath the masthead, Mayor teases plan on homelessness. Beneath that, you'd find more reports on the build-up to voting. I voted for the first time as an insight on the Houston Chronicle. Away from the Houston Chronicle, let's also cross over to Asia. We'll pick up one paper in Asia this morning, and it's the South China newspaper. On South China this morning, its Morning Post has quite the headline in that focus. You'd find famous Chung Hong estate to get revamped starting in 2028. Crossing away from the South China Morning Post, our last focus this morning is on the Wall Street Journal, as we stop by New York for a quick glimpse at what the Wall Street Journal has as feature stories and headlines. On the Wall Street Journal this morning, beneath the masthead, U.S. economy extends growth streak. Dodgers beats Yankees 7-6, capture World Series. Trump advises draw up plan to restrict legal immigration. In Florida, laws flop shut out most banks for weeks. Now, this is a broad overview of what the journals, foreign newspapers, and tabloids have as headline stories this morning. Remember, at 3 p.m. later today on ADBN Television, we have an in-house program dedicated to the news around the globe on Global Digest. Be sure to tune in to get a more in-depth analysis into the world around you. Well, having said that, our concluding segment, driven by current affairs this morning, is a more robust discussion, as we'll also be joined by another virtual guest. Well, this morning joining us on the show is Dr. John Idumenje. He is the DG, Human and Environmental Rights Dynamic Advocacy Development Initiative. He'll be joining us to further broaden the scope on the situation in Rivers State as well. Well, much like we discussed with our prior guest in our newspaper review segments, Barrister Elias Ofo, we'll be looking at more developments in terms of how human development is targeted by a court judgment restricting the disbursement of funds from the CBN and from the Accountant General of the Federation to Rivers States. It was a judgment that was issued by Justice Joy Abdulmalik of the Federal High Court in Abuja yesterday. And she says in her ruling that until a lawful appropriation act is passed by a well-constituted Rivers State House of Assembly, Rivers State is therefore restricted from receiving allocation from the federal government through the central bank and through the AGF. We'll take a break, and when we return, Dr. John will be on the program to further broaden the scope of this conversation. Stay with us.
Nigeria's battle with poliomyelitis, also known as wild polio, has been proclaimed a huge success, as there has been no recorded case of wild polio virus since 2016. The last case was recorded in Borno State, northeast Nigeria, in 2016. World Health Organization certified Nigeria as polio-free in 2020.
Polio has ended in our country in a proud dawn for all Nigerians.
UNICEF confirms over 270 million doses of vaccines are administered yearly to sustain Nigeria's polio-free status. Health specialists for social behavior change highlighted need for evidence by planning with data to address polio in each community to keep up awareness on the disease.
The key principle for social behavior change is really to have evidence. So we want data to guide all our planning and activities so that we can get the best results. And to get them on board to really also at community level to start demanding the polio vaccine for the protection of all children, ultimately so that all parents would automatically vaccinate their children every single campaign round, so that their children are protected, but also the community children are protected. We cannot do the same activities and same message everywhere, because every community is a little bit different, and not only looking at different states in the north, but also south is different. And even within community you have smaller groups. Not all parents are the same. Younger parents may have different priorities and values than parents that have many children already.
District Governor, Rotary District 9127, Dr. Mike Ukachi Wanoshiri, emphasized the need for continuous vaccination to maintain a polio-free country.
The tendency of polio to occurring again is alien, because it's a waterborne disease. So if we don't continue the vaccination, we'll go back to where we started. That's why the collaboration is very, very important. Like other organizations that are joining force with us when we started it in 1988. If not so, it might be a problem where everybody, the children, included. With that collaboration from other countries, and they're buying the ideas and understanding the program initiated by Rotary International, that's why we're able to control it. Remember, some years back, many countries today we are talking about 2. We are hoping in the next year to be 0.
District polio.
Well, that special report on the role of advocacy and social behavioral change in eradicating polio in Nigeria is an apt one, considering our polio burden. While most nations of the world have boasted about eradicating polio, new polio variants in Nigeria continue to affect the lives of infants, thereby rendering them persons with disability. We are sure that with such advocacy, Nigerians can continue to play their role towards eradicating polio. Now, coming back to our concluding discussion for the day right here on Morning Express, we're now joined by Dr. John Idumanje, who is the Director General of the Human and Environmental Rights Dynamic Advocacy Development Initiative. Now, whilst we talk about this need to enhance advocacy in human behavior, it is also tied to the functions of government in bettering the lots of people through delivering the dividends of democracy. Now, whilst elected governments come into power with beautiful manifestos and blueprints on how they can get the economy back on track and better affect the lives of citizens, most of the times, this quest is hampered by politics. It is regular to hear the adage that the time for electioneering and politicking is over, now is the time for government. But this is not usually the case, because whilst an elected government is in power, on the one hand, they're trying to govern. On the other hand, they're building momentum towards the next election circle. Now, taking for instance the case study in Rivers State is also the role and effects of godfatherism. This cannot be far removed from the conversation anytime we talk about the incumbent governor, Sasiminalai Fubara, and his predecessor, now the FCT minister, Barrister Nyesom Wike. Now, whilst these two at some point were in the same government and shared some exclusive mutual relationships that birthed the coming on board of Sasiminalai Fubara, it is how fast the chips have fallen. Now, whilst many are talking about overbearing influence having played a role, the State House of Assembly in its stead has now chosen to reflect this fractured relationship. There are factions of lawmakers loyal to the FCC minister, whilst other factions are loyal to the state governor. Now, this breakdown in the relationship now is affecting the lives of the citizens who took out time to go to their polling units, cast their votes on ballots to elect their chosen governor. Now, the citizens at that point in this negotiation had no business with who was supposed to be a successor. They believed that they were voting the right candidate of the job. The citizens in that same stead marched to the ballots to vote the lawmakers to represent them in the State House of Assembly with the mindset that these are lawmakers who would come up with laws that would better the quest of elected leaders to govern in a synergy between the three arms of government, the executive, the judiciary, and the legislature. Now, these legislators at some point might have forgotten that the budget of each year on the states, on how whatever enormous, or when you will call them well-meaning projects to affect the lives of the citizens, are hinged on the Appropriation Act. Now, in River States, the Martin Mahuelu-led faction of the State House of Assembly had approached the courts in a result we're seeing that had played out yesterday, whereby Justice Joy Abdul Malik of the Federal High Court in Abuja issued a judgment restraining Rivers from obtaining any more fundings from its consolidated accounts. Whilst that is the case, how do the people of River State, who are supposed to be the main character in this story, obtain the contracts of an election that pursues Governor Sasiminalai Fubara? It is indeed a very dynamic situation. Now, whilst this is the challenge on hand, the governor instead is making a promise, which I believe is backed by the IGR of River State, because he has said, despite this court judgment restraining funds from reaching River State from the CBN and AGF, he's ensuring the workers and people of River State that salaries will continue to flow. Now, how many states in Nigeria can make that boast? Now, Rivers, yes, the oil wells, the IGR is flowing, but a lot of persons, much like Barrister Elias Ofor, feel that there's no state in Nigeria that would say it's not well benefiting of the federal allocation. We looked at that infographics yesterday. 32 states in Nigeria depend on FAC for 50% of their revenue, while 14 depend as high as 70% on FAC for revenue. Now, this poor state's IGR is a conversation many will continue to have. But remember, we're staying with the case study in Rivers State. This court's judgment, the cause and effect on the Rivers people, who I believe are central to the story. Now, whilst many believe that the judgment can be appealed, the challenge here is the main bane of the issue, which continues to lie on a constituted assembly passing a lawful appropriation act. How do we get this requirement as occasioned in the judgment issued by Justice Joyce Abdul-Malik? What are some of the templates that will play out in going forward with this? The interest of this matter to the people of Nigeria, you would remember, is now a historic one. Many would remember that under President Olusegun Obasanjo, a similar fate befell Lagos State. Taking from antecedents and borrowing from history, how does Rivers resolve this issue? In the interim, I must tell you, one man I do not envy is Governor Sasim-Lalai Fubara. How difficult it must be to govern a state where the synergy between the arms of government is somewhat lacking, particularly in the legislative house, where the two factions continue to be much of a bane. Now, that breakdown in relationship has also trickled down into the third tier of government in Rivers State, where even the local government and its politics heated. Of course, we did televise and also inform you about some of the breakdown law and order following the conduct of the local government elections. Well, kudos to the law enforcement agencies for restoring the peace in Rivers. But I would tell you, Rivers is on a keg of gunpowder. And with judgments like this, even the former Vice President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, Alhaji Atiku Abubakar, believes that these judgments are a precipice for danger. He's also been a little bit, would I say, oppositionist in his comments. He has taken it a step further by pointing accusing fingers to loyalists of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, who he says is strong-arming the judiciary to produce such judgments. Is this indeed the truth? Well, whilst I look to give you my own perspectives to this story, it is never a complete conversation without having our guests join in. So let's see if we can rejoin Dr. John Idumanje this morning to also lend his thoughts. Hello, Doctor. Can you hear me? Hello, Doctor. Oh, while Doctor looks to join the conversation, we're hoping that we don't have any technical glitches, but I did have created the background to this conversation, and I'm hoping to also get Doctor's perspectives in this stead as to how this court judgment changes the dynamics, what happens in the State House of Assembly at this point, and can there be an intervention? Yes, we've seen interventions prior to this. The president constituted a peace pact signing deal. The National Security Advisor, Malam Nuhu Ribadu, was present. The PDP represented by the state chairman in Rivers State, the APC as well, all represented in Rivers State. The FCT minister also appended his signature to it, much like the Rivers State governor. But this morning, the Rivers State governor is also faulting that peace pact signing deal. He says he was strong-armed into doing it. And he only did it because he is a man that respects peace. He says he would not resort to violence, and he believes that the lives and property in Rivers State are not what the drama unfolding. But he also adds a caveat to it. He says that his peaceful approach and demeanor should not be taken for granted. Well, it's about talking tough in a time when, remember, the central character in this story should be the Rivers people. Now, earlier on the show, we also looked at it from the perspective of this fractured relationship, which a lot of people say is the basis of this, the face-off between Governor Fubara and Barrister Wike. Many are also accusing the FCT minister of having a stronghold on the judiciary. Is this the case? Well, Nigeria has a new Chief Justice, Justice Kudirat Kekereekun, and this will be one of the call cards as to how many would rate the current judicial system in keeping with the rule of law. And whilst the suspension order is a bane in Rivers State, there are other issues in the state. Now, we had looked to establish a connection with Dr. John Idumanje virtually, but network has not been kind to us. In the alternative, we've chosen to reach him via phone call. If our phone lines are up and running, let's see if we can have a fluid conversation with Doctor. Hello, Dr. John.
Hello.
Can you hear me? Good morning to you, sir.
Good morning. The line is still faint. I think it's a network problem.
Yeah, it is indeed. The communication networks these days have been quite poor. But let's see if we can manage it so we pick your thoughts and get your say on this issue. Well, I have
Thanks for the effort.
on it, and we're happy to have you join us. But let's get your thoughts. Once you looked at this suspension orders issued yesterday by the Federal High Court, what was your first thoughts?
You see, there is one thing that destroys the democracy. At the moment the judiciary is corrupt, then everything else is gone. The judiciary is the last hope of the common man, and if you look at the work they do, the judiciary does, they are like God on earth. Because when you pass a judgment concerning any dispute, and that judgment is final, it affects a whole range of issues. So I think they should, I am not looking at the court to find solution to the feud between Fubara and Wike. I think they should look for a political solution to it. Because the law courts in Nigeria are becoming, in fact, somebody on a platform described them as entities of immense value. I would not want to believe so, because I still believe in the judiciary, their impartiality and their integrity to deliver judgment. You see, the judiciary is key to the flourishing of democracy, because in Africa, most of the time, matters don't end up with elections. You have a winner, you have a loser, the tussle begins. They will drag the matter until they get to the Supreme Court and so on. But the case of Nigeria is becoming notorious. Notorious in the sense that nobody accepts defeat in any election. And when the matter is taken to the law court, people don't go home and sleep. They begin to look at who do you know in the judiciary. And judges are supposed to be upright, you know, given their high standard, the high standard expected of them. So when I saw the judgment of the High Court, in fact, I just felt that the judiciary sometimes oversteps our bounds, or sometimes some judgments that are not based on precedence causes a lot of chaos, a lot of confusion and tension.
Now, Dr. John, let's take this matter a little bit back. Let's start from the political solution that the president in himself thought would solve the issue in Rivers State when he invited for a peace signing the two parties. Do you think that the next political solution should go beyond a signing of a peace pact?
The president is not in a position to settle that problem. When I mean political solution, they should look for an informal way. Look at credible Nigerians, especially those in the Niger, those in Rivers State and other states around in the Niger Delta. Credible Nigerians, elders that are respected, to sit around and resolve the matter. The president belongs to a political party, and he has taken Wike as his first son because of the role Wike played during the 2023 election. So the president is not in a position to resolve that matter. But if we look at other people, other credible Nigerians in Rivers State and around the Niger Delta that can resolve the matter, I think that's the best option. The president himself cannot resolve the political issue because he is a politician. And in resolving the issue, he will always tilt the pendulum of justice. Okay. Yes, because today Wike is minister. So you cannot be a judge in your own. You know, the standard of judgment, there are two things involved. One is that you should be impartial. The other one is that anybody coming to court should be able to provide evidence and so on. So the president's intervention was at that time, but he was not supposed to be the one to, settle the dispute between Fubara and Wike.
Now, Dr. John, let's also look at some of the issues with the president stepping in the first stead. Many have looked at it from the angle of federal might and possibly the reason why the defection in the State House of Assembly took place in trying to project some of the outcomes going into 2027. Now, how does the State House of Assembly put itself in order now that we also have two factions, one loyal to the FCT minister and one loyal to the governor, even in the State House of Assembly?
That is a most important issue now to be resolved. Whereas the Fubara faction, there are some people who are playing a very bad role in this conflict. Some will go to Wike and come back to Fubara, rumormongers and those who peddle rumors just to gain favor from either Fubara or Wike. I should have thought that the law courts will look at the issue of defection even before going to this extent of telling the CBN and whatever to stop releasing the allocations applicable to River State. For me, that is a clear case of arm twisting. You are arm twisting the government. You want the people of River State to take the laws into their hands. It's an invitation to anarchy and lawlessness. So the law court should be able to, what this matter can be resolved is when there is compromise. Fubara has to give up some of his demands. Wike has to also give up some of his demands. Then they can find the common ground and live amicably. As a matter of fact, the cannot constitute what we call the River State House of Assembly. There are too few. If the number was 50-50, one would have said, okay, 50% of the lawmakers are in support of Fubara. We can make do with the 50%. But this one, the number is so skewed against Fubara, skewed in favor of the federal capital territory minister. So a political solution is the way forward. They should call elder statesmen like Ike Clark and all that. We have in River, yesterday I attended an inaugural lecture, and guess the question they asked me outside as soon as the inaugural lecture was over. Instead of asking me questions concerning, they were, in fact, the feud between Fubara and Wike has overshadowed even the job that is being done in River State. So I think it is high time we put an end to it.
Now,
by exploring, bringing in elder statesmen to resolve the matter. And that's the only way forward to a lasting solution in River State.
Now
lasting a peace.
Whilst you have rightly preferred the invitation of elder statesmen to resolve this issue, one of the persons who are most affected by these breakdown in relationship are the people of Rivers. Some people are calling it a case of financial limbo. Do you think that whilst River State can boast of a strong IGR, some of the capital expenditures needed to deliver dividends of democracy are jeopardized by this ruling?
No, the state cannot run on IGR. No state, there's no state. Even maybe it's only, the only exception is maybe Lagos State. Only 25% of all the funding, about 26% or so, the IGR in Lagos, the IGR can take care of so many things, even without the FAC receipts. But River State cannot do anything without the IGR is high, quite all right, but it is not enough to embark on capital projects. No way. It's too small. Rivers people cannot be denied. Hello?
Yeah, but with you, the line cut off for a bit there, but you can pick up from where you left off.
River State cannot be denied the benefit of receiving the allocation as an oil-producing state and as a state, an important state in the Federal Republic of Nigeria. So the two parties should agree to nominate credible Nigerians to mediate. The law court, you have seen it now, the law court cannot find a solution to this problem. The law courts, when you adopt a win-win approach, one party will be so discontented, so dissatisfied with the judgment, and the matter will go on until, even if you take the matter, will still not be happy. In order to bring compromise to the whole issue and to bring lasting peace between Fubara and Wike, these two people, remember, these people have worked together for so many years as friends, even though it was a master-servant relationship. But they have worked for so many years, they understand themselves. So, for me, that is the reality of the moment. Now, the law court cannot bring peace. But the law court, lawyers and the judges are also human beings. They are susceptible to the vagaries and vicissitudes of our economy. Today, economic survival seems to be the most important thing in the life of every man. And gone are the days when we said the judges could not be bribed. Now, we are going to interrogate the integrity of judges over most of these political cases. So,
now,
call a man like Ike Clark, call Ferdinand Anabraba, some Peter Side, Atedo Peter Side, and some other people who are not playing politics. Call them around. Now they sit down. They will go into the room and assess this matter. And on the none of it will happen. That's the only way to move forward. No state makes progress without peace.
Now, talking about keeping the peace in River State, Dr. John, many are also looking at the issue with local governments, whereby after the local government election, we also saw a breakdown in law and peace and order.
That was not a breakdown of Sobia or local government. It was rascality on the part of the police. And it is very obvious, the way the police acted. And virtually, it is, without being told, acted on the instruction of the IGP, the Inspector General of Police, who himself lives in the Federal Territory. And we assume that himself and we can be close friends. So we have gone past all of that. I think the River State government has set up a panel or commission of inquiry to find out what really happened. But it is a matter that, if you look at it, if you know the cause of a problem, you don't.
Your call credit has been exhausted.
Well, we're rudely interrupted with that call with Dr. John Iduma J. But looking to make his point, he has said if you know the root cause of a matter, you invite persons to the table to discuss it. And he's saying in River State, in solving the power tussle between the FCT minister and the governor, elder statesmen need to be invited. The president, in his words, has no business in resolving the political impasse. Well, this is going to be a matter we'll revisit tomorrow in a two-part discussion and going into the new week as other sides of the stories continue to unfold. But in keeping with more reports this morning on the show, we'll also give you another special report before we come back with our concluding segments and hand you over to our Uyo studios for ADBN Sports at 10. Do well to stay with us.
Across the globe, rural women are the backbone of food production, working tirelessly to provide for their families and communities. Though their contributions are invaluable, they are often unseen. In Nigeria, these women form the bedrock of the agricultural sector, cultivating the food that sustains millions. Despite facing economic challenges, they continue to grow and harvest crops, feeding not just their families, but an entire nation. According to the Food and Agricultural Organization, they make up a large proportion of the agricultural labor force, between 60% and 79%, depending on the region. These women are responsible for key food crops such as cassava, yams, and maize, which are staples in Nigeria's diet. Additionally, they play a key role in small-scale livestock farming. Meet the women behind the food on our tables. Farmers who have cultivated not just crops, but hope for a better tomorrow. We visited their farms to see firsthand how they contribute to feeding communities, even in the face of adversity. These women grow rice, beans, yams, and more, producing the very food we rely on every day. Their dedication to farming is more than a job. It is a way of life passed down through generations.
This is the egg farm. Both beans, they are inside. All they are together, both okra. So the okra, they already plugged the okra. Sometimes, like now, the okra, sometimes they get reach 5 bags. Before they get it reach like 10 bags, but now, like 5 bags, because I don't have too much of money that I'm farming now. They got the egg before they get a reach like 20 bags. So now the thing reduced, they get like 10 bags now.
Ada wannan benestiri bai course aka ba yanzu aka mudu 2,500 bu 140.
Unicorn before is 70, now it's more than 100.
Their contribution to society goes beyond the fields. These women are not just farmers, they are mothers, entrepreneurs, and community builders. Their efforts support the local economy, nourish families, and build a better future for their children. Sarkin Danladi Saleh, who is a community leader in this community, emphasizes the essential role these women play in the sustainable growth of local food production.
Our community, our women, most of our women, they used to farm. Farm is their sources of their business to sustain their life and to provide money and sponsor their children to school.
Yet, behind every success, there are struggles. These women face a lack of access to fertilizers, transportation, and financial support. Even theft threatens their livelihood.
You know, say this farm that we are farm, we have issue of money because we are giving them money to farm for us. Because you get the time that we will not have the strength to do it. Even though you have the strength, like our men, they like money, so we give them money to farm for us.
The thing they affect us too much, because we will not get grant. What would they take the farm? Nah, hire would they hire them? Sometimes 50,000, 30,000 now would they spend before then we go get land to farm.
Ina bukatan taki, rashin kudi ne, isheshen kudi ne ba shi ba. Taki ma muna saya ne. Kame mu samu kudi mu saya da shi wahala ne.
Gender disparities in access to resources such as irrigation, mechanization, and financial services persist, significantly affecting their productivity. Social norms and legal barriers further limit women's ownership of land, reducing their agricultural output and economic empowerment. Rural women in Nigeria who play a pivotal role in food production are deeply affected by the current economic challenges that have led to significant hikes in food prices. This has directly impacted food availability and affordability as rural farmers especially women, struggle to maintain production levels while dealing with reduced purchasing power and access to essential supplies. The result has been a sharp increase in food prices across the country. Both buyers and sellers in the marketplaces express their concerns. Sellers, facing rising costs of transportation and inputs, are forced to raise prices, while buyers express frustration over their dwindling purchasing power.
So every people when they come to buy, they complain too much. They say they think too high. Some people they buy 5 mudu before, they're going to start to 1 mudu, 2 mudu.
So how much did they sell this one before?
Before they sell them 700.
The gari is 1,001. Before we are selling it 350, 400 naira, but now it's 1,001.
You can't touch, you can't price. Even as I just enter this market this afternoon, everything I touch is too cost. I could not buy anything, so the thing provoked me, make me annoyed. I'm going home.
The high rate of things increasing, and before you know, you buy something in the morning, in the afternoon is high, times 3 of what you price in the morning.
On this International Day for Rural Women, we celebrate the women whose hands feed us, whose strength inspires us, and whose work sustains our future. Their contributions are endless and their resilience unmatched. As we honor them today, we must also strive to support and uplift the women who make it all possible.
Well, another special report looking at the role of rural women in contributions to food security. And I must say, in the hinterlands where mechanized farming is not much of a thing, it takes a lot of effort. And much like you heard from some of the women, they don't have farmlands. They have to also rent to be able to, on the one hand, make ends meet for their family and be able to have some source of livelihood. In keeping with the efforts of the government of the day in ensuring that agricultural sustainability is a thing in Nigeria, it's important the global community rallies together to support rural women in contributing their quota to food security. Well, we're earlier in a call with Dr. John Idumage from Port Harcourt, looking at the Similar Life Wire versus WeK power tussle, and the network hasn't been too friendly, but in keeping with our conversation, we would look to reconnect with him, and if time does permit, get his closing thoughts on the matter. That would also take the airwaves before we hand you over to our Uyo studios for ADBN Sports at 10. Quite interestingly, in the Carabao Cup yesterday, we saw some actions where Manchester United, in interim management capacity by a former player, Ruud van Nistelrooy, was able to marshal the team into the quarterfinals of the Carabao Cup with an impressive 5-2 scoreline. Much was the same for Arsenal as they took on Preston North End, and some goals for promising players in Gabriel Jesus and Ethan Nwaneri on the scoreline as Arsenal thumped Preston North End by 3-0 to set up an interesting quarterfinal round of fixtures. But away from that is a build-up going into the weekend with more action across major leagues, and particularly the NPFL back here in Nigeria. We'll be having a robust look into the sporting activities at 10 a.m. this morning. However, let's remind you that you can rewatch whatever favorite program you have here on our YouTube channel at ADBN TV. You can also follow us across social media handles on Facebook, Instagram, and on X at ADBN_TV. You can also watch us from every part of the world by logging onto our website on www.adbntv.com/live. Well, would have another special report as it concerns a simple practice at critical times that can cut down the number of diarrheal diseases by over 50%, as we're reminded that hand washing saves life. The 15th of October yearly is the Global Hand Washing Day, but going into the few hours left we have in October, let's remind us about this global practice as we wrap up the show today. My name is Beto O'Brien. Thanking you for being a part of the program. And looking forward to seeing you again tomorrow on another day to discuss critical issues in the news. Do well to have a nice day.
Good hygiene globally has been identified as critical to preventing